Muy buenos días. Tengan todos ustedes la más cordial bienvenida al Seminario Internacional Desarrollo de Capacidades en el ámbito de la reducción del riesgo de desastres, instancia en donde estamos dando cierre a este proyecto de cooperación entre Chile y Japón, el que se extendió durante más de 3 años. Este proyecto tuvo como principal objetivo fortalecer la institucionalidad de ONEMI para promover la reducción del riesgo de desastre en Chile. Les recordamos que este seminario está siendo transmitido por nuestro canal de YouTube ONEMI Chile en sus versiones en inglés y español. Dando inicio, queremos saludar a las autoridades que encabezan esta actividad. Al señor Katsuhisa Shibuya, embajador de Japón en Chile. Señor Ricardo Toro Tazara, director de la Oficina Nacional de Emergencia del Ministerio del Interior y Seguridad Pública, ONEMI. Señor Enrique O'Farrell, jefe de la División de Cooperación de la Agencia Chilena de Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo, ACSID, del Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores. Señor Shoji Osawa, representante residente de la Oficina en Chile de la Agencia de Cooperación Internacional de Japón, JICA. También saludamos especialmente a alcaldes, alcaldesas, autoridades, integrantes del Sistema Nacional de Prevención y Respuesta ante Desastres y a quienes nos siguen a través de nuestro canal de YouTube. Para entregar unas palabras en esta ceremonia de apertura del Seminario Desarrollo de Capacidades en el ámbito de la reducción de riesgo de desastres, dejamos con ustedes al señor Ricardo Toro Tazara, director de la Oficina Nacional de Emergencia del Ministerio del Interior, ONEMI.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning. I would like to say welcome to the head of the Division of Cooperation of the National Agency of International Cooperation for Development, the Ambassador of Japan, and the resident of JICA office in
Dar la
Chile,
bienvenida a cada uno de los participantes de este importante evento,
President
como
Representative,
también
and all
al
of you
público que
connected
sigue
with
esta
this
transmisión
important event,
a través de
and
nuestro
to the
canal
people
de
following
YouTube
this
ONEMI Chile.
broadcast through our ONEMI
Hoy
Chile YouTube
Es un día
channel.
especial.
Today we
Luego
have
de
a special
poco más de
day
3 años de arduo trabajo.
for a
Nos
little bit
encontramos
more than 3
reunidos
years
en esta
of
jornada de término del
long
proyecto
work. We are
de
gathering
fortalecimiento
together
de
in this
capacidades de
stage
ONEMI.
of finishing the project for
Ciertamente,
strengthening
durante
skills
estos últimos años,
in ONEMI.
ONEMI, como
Certainly
entidad
during these last
coordinadora
years,
del Sistema
ONEMI,
Nacional
as the
de
coordinator
Prevención y
entity
Respuesta
for
ante
the
Desastres,
prevention
ha
and
generado
response
un
in
avance
events by
sostenido
disaster,
en
has
tecnología,
sustainable
logística y recursos humanos,
advance
como
in
también
logistics,
lo han
human
hecho los
resources,
organismos
and
técnicos
progressing
que monitorean
as
las
we
distintas
also are
amenazas
improving the
que
technical
aportan capacidades a dicho
capacity
sistema.
for different threats,
Uno de los puntos
contributing with
cúlmines de
capacity to
este
the different
proceso
system. One
ha
of the
sido la
important points
aprobación
of this process
durante el
is
2021
the approval
de la
during
ley
the
que establece
2021
el Sistema
last
Nacional
year
de
established the
Prevención y Respuesta
National
ante
System
Desastres
for
y que
Prevention and Disaster
sustituye
Response
a la Oficina Nacional de
to
Emergencia por el
be
Servicio
exchanged by
Nacional
ONEMI
de Prevención y
for the
Respuesta ante
National
Desastres.
Service for Prevention
Esta
and
ley
Disaster Response.
recoge todas las
The law
acciones que se han
would
venido
gather all the
realizando
actions that
en esta
have been
última década para
gathered in
optimizar
this last
al
decade
Sistema Nacional,
to
dándole un
make an
carácter
optimal
obligatorio
national system
al
that is
cumplimiento de
mandatory
las
in
acciones que
compliance
indica la norma
for the actions
para
that the
todos sus
standard
miembros.
will
Además,
place for
le
all the
entrega
members,
al actual
and
ONEMI,
also to
futuro
give
SENAPRED, la
current
función
ONEMI,
de supervisar
future
el
SENAPRED, the
cumplimiento
function of
de lo que la
oversighting
ley
the
señala.
compliance of what is established in
Justamente,
the law.
la promulgación de este cuerpo legal
Enacting
coincidió
this
con el término de este
legal
proyecto
body
de
is in coincidence
fortalecimiento
with
de
the finishing of
capacidades
this
que hoy nos
project
convoca.
to strengthen
Sin
capacity
lugar a dudas,
that is
esta
now gathering
iniciativa,
to
sustentada
us
en 3
together.
pilares, que ha sido
This
producto
initiative
de la
of
contribución del
3
gobierno de Japón
pillars as a
a
result
través de
of the
JICA,
contribution
tendrá
of Japan through
una
JICA
importante incidencia
to
en la futura implementación de la ley,
affect the
en
future
especial
implementation
en
of
aquellos
the
aspectos
law,
relacionados
especially in the
al
aspects
sistema
that
de
are
planificación
in regards
y
to the
trabajo
planning
comunitario.
and community
Lo
system.
anterior permitirá continuar robusteciendo la
That
estructura de
said,
ONEMI
we will
para
strengthen
dejarla
the
en una
structure
mejor
of ONEMI
posición
to
para
place it
enfrentar
in a better
escenarios
position to
futuros,
face future
dadas las
scenarios
características
due
extremas
to the
de,
extreme
los
characteristics
eventos asociados
of the
al cambio
events that are
climático,
associated
cada
to
vez
climate
más
change,
recurrente en su
more and more
afectación a nivel
happening
mundial.
and affecting the
Lo
whole
anterior,
world,
sin olvidar la permanente amenaza
without
de los eventos
forgetting
geológicos.
the permanent threat
Antes de terminar
of
mis palabras,
geological
quiero
events.
agradecer a todos quienes
I
aportaron
would like to
para hacer
thank
de este proyecto
all of the
una
people
realidad.
involved to make
Al
this
gobierno de
project
Japón,
a reality,
al
the
equipo de
government of
consultores de
Japan,
ambos países
the
y a
team
los
of
profesionales de
consultants
ONEMI,
from both countries
encabezados
and
por el
professionals
subdirector
at
de
ONEMI
gestión del riesgo.
with the Deputy
Nos queda
Director
la
of
alta
Risk Management.
satisfacción de haber
We
cumplido
have a
con
high
este
satisfaction
desafío,
level of
generando
compliance with this
productos
challenge,
concretos y
generating
valiosos que, como
very
se indicó
specific products and
anteriormente,
valuable
serán empleados e
results that,
internalizados
as we
en
said
ONEMI,
before,
como
will be
también
used
quedarán a
and
disposición
internalized
del
in
Sistema
ONEMI
Nacional de
and will
Prevención
become
y Respuesta
available for
ante
the National
Desastres.
System for Prevention and
Los
Disaster
invito
Response.
a permanecer
My
conectados a este
invitation is
seminario,
stay
en
connected
donde se
in the
abordarán
seminar where we will
interesantes
face
materias,
important
entre ellas
matters.
una
Among
revisión
them,
en
we will
profundidad
review in
de
depth
cada uno de los pilares que
each
conforman
of the
este proyecto,
pillars
su
that
aporte a la
sustain
nueva
the
ley
project,
y finalizando
the
con
contribution
un
to the new
conversatorio que
law,
analizará cómo promover
and
actividades de reducción de
to
riesgo
talk
de
about
desastres
how to
en
promote
Chile.
activities
Muchas gracias
to
y
improve
éxito en esta jornada.
the management of disaster risk in Chile. Thank you and have a
Muchas
good day.
gracias, director, por su intervención.
Thank you, Mr. Director,
A
for
continuación,
your
nos entregará un
words.
saludo
We will
el
now
jefe de la
listen
División
to
de
the
Cooperación de la
of
Agencia
the
Chilena de Cooperación Internacional para el
Bilateral
Desarrollo,
Multilateral Cooperation
AXI,
Department,
del
International
Ministerio
Cooperation
de
Agency
Relaciones
for
Exteriores,
Development of Chile,
señor Enrique
from the
O'Farrill.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Enrique O'Farrill. Mr. National Director of ONEMI, Mr. Ambassador of Chile, Mr. Representative of JICA in Chile, participants of the seminar, good morning. As the head of the Division of Cooperation from the Chilean Agency for International Cooperation for Development, AXID, it's a great honor to give you these words. Under the framework of the International Seminar, Development of Skills in the Area of Disaster Risk Reduction, organized together with the National Office of Emergency ONEMI, depending from the Ministry of Interior and Public Safety in Chile, and JICA. This important and relevant seminar is done under the framework of the project of strengthening ONEMI to develop skills in the area of disaster risk reduction, aiming to promote an open space for sharing, exchanging knowledge, and cascade the results of this process that ONEMI and the municipalities realize and perform with the key objective of promoting disaster risk reduction in Chile. First, I'd like to say congratulations, ONEMI, and to all the team of experts and consultants of JICA who intensely worked since the beginning of this project. In 2018, and especially in the context of this pandemic, with an objective of strengthening the skills of ONEMI to promote the implementation of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. This international seminar is an important instance to highlight the work of ONEMI to support technically the municipalities to prepare and implement communal plans to create disaster risk reduction. Licantén municipality is a specific example of this great effort, as they have prepared a plan for disaster risk reduction to support this project, including actions in agreement with the guidelines and the tools that were developed as part of this project. in terms of our strategic alliance with the government of Japan in matters of disaster risk reduction, as an agency, we are really excited to promote a new stage of cooperation. This year, together with JICA, we will start the second stage of the program, Izuna, that will contribute to resilience of communities of our region, strengthening the connections and the network with former participants of this program and also the institutions and organizations. Likewise, we will start the new bilateral project for strengthening measures to avoid COVID-19 contagion in disaster times, to be executed by ONEMI, which will also aim to improve the skills of that institution to counteract infectious diseases in shelters. Both projects are specific examples of how Chile and Japan continued exploring and identifying new ways to scale up this alliance in order to promote the development of the communities and municipalities to be more safe, sustainable, and resilient. To end with my words, on behalf of the Cooperation Department, International Cooperation Agency for Development in Chile, ACCED, I would like to highlight this wonderful work done with ONEMI Chile and JICA Office in Chile, especially, and international consultants, to illustrate how important this strategic alliance has been to promote a sustainable cooperation across our region. I wish you the best of the success for this international seminar. I am certain that the results of this wonderful project will show how important it is to support initiatives that are aiming to foster resiliency of communities in the event of a natural disaster. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos al señor Enrique
We
O'Farrill.
thank Mr. Enrique
Ahora
O'Farrill.
invitamos a
It
extender
is now the time
su saludo
to
al embajador de
invite
Japón,
the
señor
ambassador of
Katsuhisa
Japan
Shibuya.
for his opening remarks. Mr. Kazuhisa Shibuya, please.
Por la pandemia y haya tenido un gran éxito. Es fruto de los esfuerzos de todos los profesionales de la ONEMI que participaron. Como embajador de Japón y como profesional que he estado entrado en esta organización, profundamente a la política de prevención de desastres de Japón, me siento verdaderamente complacido y respetuoso.
So I have to say congratulations for the results of these projects. That is a great contribution. Certainly the increase of skills in the professionals of ONEMI as the result of the project is not just going to stay in Chile through these regional projects that has been led for our countries together to include human resources for preventing disasters that has been linked to improve the ability and the skills in the late years. The natural disaster has been working with cooperation in these matters to make more sense at a global level. The diplomatic mission of Chile this year is celebrating anniversary 125. Cooperation in disaster risk prevention is a major pillar, so I would wish that this can continue to be developed. That is why I think and I hope that the seminar should have a wonderful success. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, embajador
Thank you,
Shibuya.
Mr. Ambassador Shibuya.
Agradecemos las
We
palabras
thank,
de cada una
the
de las
words of each of the
autoridades
authorities,
y de esta forma
and
damos
this
por
manner,
inaugurado
we
el Seminario
opened the
Internacional
International
Desarrollo de
Development
Capacidades
of Skills
en el ámbito de
in
la
the sphere of
reducción del riesgo de
disaster risk
desastres.
reductions.
Siguiendo con el programa,
we
ahora
have
damos inicio a la primera exposición de la mañana, en donde hará una introducción
we'll
general
have a general
sobre este proyecto
introduction
internacional
on this
y
international
para
project.
ello
And for
dejamos
that
con
purpose,
ustedes
we offer
al
the
señor
floor
Ishiro
to Mr.
Kobayashi,
Ichiro,
del equipo de expertos
from the
de la
team of
Agencia de
Japanese
Cooperación
experts of the
Internacional de
International
Japón,
Cooperation
JICA.
Agency of Japan, JICA. Resumen primero del proyecto.
Okay. What? Again?
Nuevamente, desde el inicio, por favor, no
Pasa?
señal.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Muy bien.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ichiro Kobayashi. I'm Chief Advisor of JICA Expert Team. Today, I'm very pleased to present to you the result of a project called Institutional Strengthening ONEMI for Capacity Development in Disaster Risk Reduction Project. This project is funded by JICA and focusing on disaster risk reduction in the Chile. To do this, we promote to develop DRR plan, disaster risk plan formulation and its implementation. Another important aspect of this project is learn from past disaster experience. Of course, this project also helped to achieve Sendai framework and sustainable development goal. I just start from explaining about the summary of the project. Project name is already mentioned. Duration, this project is started from October 16th, 2018 and end April 15, 2021. But due to the COVID-19, we extended it March 2020, 2022. Overall goal is ONEMI's capacity strengthening to promote implementation of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. And ONEMI's project purpose is function is strengthening to promote DRR. There are three outputs in this project. One is priority work on ONEMI established in National DRR organization, and the second output is a concept design and its strategy for the knowledge management system are developed. Third output is mechanism for human resource capacity and development for DRR is established at the Civil Protection Academy and Program Department of ONEMI. I just to continue for summary of the project. Implementation agency is ONEMI, and we formed a joint coordination committee. This committee is very important for this project to check the progress and decide future direction. You can see this member is a member of JCC. And beneficiary is direct beneficiaries, ONEMI officials, at personal at national directorates of regions office. Indirect beneficiary is all over the Chile people. We selected 2 municipalities for pilot project. Our target is all country, but we select 2 pilot area. One is San Jose de Maipo, and the second is Licanten and Maule region. This is Chile and Japan is situated very similar environment. We live in face to the Pacific Ocean, and we have many natural disasters, such as earthquake, tsunami, flood, landslide, and so on. Japan spent budget to protect people from natural disaster by structure measure and non-structure measures. Japan's Basic Act on Disaster Management was enacted in 1961, and then Japan disaster risk reduction approach is started. Since then, Japan has invested a lot on the disaster management field. Training Japan was to share the Japanese experience for disaster risk management system in Japan to ONEMI's counterpart, and think about Chile's disaster management activity and system. Because disaster management system is very unique in each country, there is no uniform answer. Training Japan was conducted 2 times, March 2019 and June 2019. We visited central government, Tohoku tsunami damaged area, and other places to know how Japanese prepare for natural disaster. This is the second time training in Japan. Activity of the project, we have basically work in this office and visited in regional ONEMI office and pilot area. This is some scene for the project implementation. And COVID-19 is a spread of COVID-19 also have a major impact on this project. Japanese experts could not come to Chile, and we have to stay at home. The situation of Chile was very similar to that of Japan. We have 12-hour time difference, Chile and Japan, so that we do not know how we can continue this project in 1990 especially. Thank you very much to the IT technology and web meeting and online meeting. We continue the project with coordination, cooperation with ONEMI counterpart, Chile counterpart, and JICA's expert team. We did 2 JCC meetings on web meeting system. And also we did many courses for DRR by web system. this is some screenshot for coordinate meeting. You can see this is many people join in that coordination meeting. JICA Chile office, ONEMI Santiago, ONEMI region, and headquarters JICA, and JICA expatriate coming from Japan, and the Chile staff. So simultaneous translation is used to reduce the language barrier for us. We used meeting very frequently after COVID-19 environment. ONEMI also did the online seminar for DRR in May 2091 with 17 participants. I just briefly explained about how we achieved each goal. Output 1 is very important for this project. Most important part, we identify DRR activity and important, especially region and municipality. First step is we prepare the DRR plan for municipality. It is an important step to promote DRR activity in this country. However, it is very difficult task because plan itself is not so familiar with municipality staff. Even the implementation DRR is not guaranteed after the completion of the plan. JICA expert team proposed to implement DRR project through PRADECO. PRADECO is the municipal development plan. We had very good news from Licanten because DRR project together with PRADECO is implemented by this municipality. We can see 3 projects already ongoing on the Licanten municipality. It proved to be implemented as a PRADECO project for DRR project. This experience is very small step, but I think it is very good, very big step for Chile to implement DRR plan for structure measure in this country. To reduce the risk from natural disaster could increase development benefit through achievement of disaster resilient society. San Jose de Maipo is following to this activity, and progress is very good. So we can see another very good news from San Jose de Maipo. Second output is we propose is very unique. Learning from past disaster is very important to reduce the risk from the natural disaster, because we can learn only from past disaster. So this output is we prepare the concept design and strategy for knowledge management system. This management system is basic concept knowledge is we already prepared. So we will see soon new unique system will run by ONEMI very soon. And output 3 is very important to materialize DRR plan in this country, because human resource and capacity development is key to success. Material developed under this output ready to help municipality staff to disseminate practical knowledge and methods for DRR plan formulation and implementation. So this is the end of my presentation. So thank you very much for your support, and we see more resilient society in the future. Thank you very much.
Kobayashi por su exposición.
We thank Mr.
Continuando
Ishiro
con esta
Kobayashi
actividad,
for his
ahora
presentation. To
corresponde
continue with this
presentar
activity,
los
it is now the
principales
time to
resultados
show
del
the main
proyecto
results
Fortalecimiento
of
de
the
las
project
capacidades de ONEMI,
Strengthening Skills
los que han El pilar 1 enfatiza en la importancia de la planificación en la reducción del riesgo de desastres para generar resiliencia en las comunidades. Para dar a conocer sus resultados, hoy nos acompaña la señora Alicia Cebrián, jefa de la División de Protección Civil de ONEMI.
Muy buenos días a todos y todas.
Good morning
A continuación
to all
queremos
of you. We
presentarles
would like
los
to
resultados de
show
cada
you the
uno de los
results of
pilares
each of the
en torno a
outputs
los cuales se fue
in
desarrollando
regards
este
to
proyecto durante los
which
3
we
años
developed the project
en que
throughout
se
the 3
realizó.
years it was done.
Para poner un poco en contexto
To
el
provide you
proyecto de
with more
fortalecimiento
context, the
realizado
strengthening
con
project
JICA,
that we have
cada
done
uno de
with
los 3
JICA,
pilares en torno a los cuales se
in each of the
desarrollaron las
3
actividades y los
outputs
productos que
that
les
the
vamos a
activities
mostrar a
were
continuación,
developed and the
estuvieron
products that we will show
diseñados
you were
para que
designed
respondieran
so as
a
to
las acciones prioritarias y las
respond
metas
to
mundiales
priority
definidas por el
actions
marco de
and world
Sendai para la RRD
goals that
y
were
también
defined
para
by
dar
the Sendai
respuesta
framework
en
for
parte a los
the disaster
desafíos
risk
que
reduction
están
and
establecidos
to
a nivel mundial por los
respond
objetivos de
the
desarrollo
challenges
sostenible.
at a world
En
level in the
particular, el pilar
objectives of
1 y el pilar
sustainable
2
development, output 1 and 2 particularly,
han aportado a
were
fortalecer la gestión del
contributing
riesgo
to
de desastre
strengthen
dentro de las
the
acciones prioritarias del marco de
management
Sendai
of disaster risk reduction under
y
the
a comprender
Sendai
el riesgo
framework
de desastre.
and to understand
Ambas
the risk
acciones
of a disaster. Both
aportan
actions
además
to
a el
contribute
resto de las acciones
with
prioritarias
the
definidas por el
rest
marco de
of
Sendai, que
the
son invertir en la RRD
priorities
para la
under the
resiliencia y
framework
la
of Sendai,
preparación ante desastres y
which is
construir
investing for
mejor.
resiliency and preparedness for disaster
Los
and
objetivos de
build
cada
better.
uno de estos
The
pilares
objectives of each of
han
these
dado paso a una
pillars
serie de productos y acciones que se desarrollaron
created
durante estos
products
3
and
años.
actions that were developed
El
through
pilar
these
1,
3
que es el
years,
que les
the
voy a
output
presentar a
1, which is the one
continuación,
that I will
los
introduce now,
resultados tendían a
with results
establecer
that
las labores
tended
prioritarias de
to
ONEMI como organismo
establish
nacional para
priority
la
of ONEMI as
RRD.
the National Organization for
Esta serie de
Disaster Risk
actividades que se
Reduction. The
desarrollaron,
series
hoy
of
día
activities
podemos dar
prepared,
cuenta
we
de un
can
100%
now
cumplimiento
have
y
the
les voy a
accountability
presentar a
of
continuación
100% of
en
compliance.
detalle
I will
cada
now
uno
show you
de
in
los resultados.
the breakdown
La
of
actividad para mejorar
each
el
of the
formato del
results, the
plan para
activity
la
to improve the
RRD basada en
format
actividades
of the plan
piloto
for the disaster risk
significó
reduction
poder
based on
confeccionar
pilot
un formato para
activities,
que los
created
municipios
a new
pudieran
form so the
desarrollar
municipalities
este
could
plan de
create
reducción
the
del riesgo de
plan
desastres en cada una de
for
sus comunas.
disaster risk reduction
Y
in each of
este
their
formato fue
communities,
finalmente aprobado a
and the
través de una
form was
resolución
approved
en
through a resolution
el año pasado,
back
en enero del año pasado, y
in
está
January
disponible
last year.
para todos los
It
municipios
is now
que
available
quieran
to all the
desarrollar su plan
municipalities
comunal.
who would like to develop their
Para
communal
poder
plan.
complementar este trabajo
To
de la
supplement
realización de
this
estos planes
work,
comunales,
to create
se
these
realizó en
communal
conjunto con el
plans,
equipo JICA y el
that
equipo de
was together
consultores
with
que
the
apoyó este
JICA
proyecto,
team and
un
consultants
video
teams
que
supporting the
permite
project. A video was
guiar a las
prepared
comunas y a las
to
personas, a
provide
los equipos
guidelines to
profesionales
the
que
communities
desarrollan
and
estos
professional
planes en las
teams
herramientas de
developing the plans
planificación,
in their tools
basándose en las actividades pilotos que
for
se
planning
realizaron en dos de
based
las
on the pilot
comunas
activities created in two of the
que
communes
participaron en el proyecto.
participating in the project.
Además de este video, se complementó con el desarrollo de una
So
guía
in
para
the
la
video, it
implementación
was
del plan
supplemented with a
comunal para la
guideline
RRD,
preparation for the communal
que
plan for
entrega
disaster risk reduction
antecedentes y
to
aporta a que los
give
municipios
background
puedan
information
ir vinculando
contributing
el
to the
plan comunal
municipalities to
que
link
ellos
the
desarrollan
communal
con otros
plan that
instrumentos
they
de la
develop
planificación a
with
nivel
other
comunal
instruments
y
for
poder
communal planning
vislumbrar
and to have a vision
financiamiento para las acciones
for
que se
funding
definan en
of
este plan como
actions that could be
estratégicas para
defined in the
la
plan as part of the
disminución de los
strategy
riesgos
to
en los territorios.
decrease risk in
El
their
resultado
territories.
de
As a
este
result of
trabajo
this work,
finalmente
eventually
llevó a tener un plan comunal de
led to a
RRD en la
communal
comuna de
plan
Alicantén,
of
región del
disaster risk
Maule,
reduction in
y
the
un plan comunal
Licantén
de reducción de riesgo de
Maule
desastre en
region
San
and
José
a
y Maipo.
communal
Ambos
plan
municipios
for
fueron los
disaster risk
municipios piloto
reduction
que
in
participaron en
comuna
este proyecto
of San
durante
Jose
los
de
3
Maipo,
años de
both
implementación.
participating during these 3 years of implementation
Para
in the
apoyar
pilot
la
project.
guía que les
To
mencioné
support the
anteriormente,
guidelines I
también se
mentioned before,
diseñó un
there was
folleto
also a
que
design of a
consolida
booklet
las principales ideas en torno a la
include the main
importancia de poder
ideas
reducir el riesgo de
in this
desastre
brochure
para proteger
for
a la
disaster risk
comunidad
reduction
en
and
los
the
niveles
protection of the
comunales
communities at a
y
communal
da
level,
algunos antecedentes muy
providing
consolidados
some very
en una
important
herramienta que es de
consolidated
fácil
background
distribución y de
information
fácil
in a tool
lectura
that is easy to
sobre
distribute and
el
read,
acceso a fondos
to
internacionales,
have
el acceso
access
a
to international
financiamiento en otros
funds and
instrumentos
funding with other instruments
en distintos ministerios
in
o
different
distintas líneas
ministries
presupuestarias.
or budget lines.
Para poder apoyar además
be able
el
to
desarrollo de estos
support
planes de
The
RRD en la comuna
development
Alicantén y
of
San
the
José
plans
Maipo,
for disaster
el
risk reduction
equipo
in the communes
consultor
of
en conjunto
Licantén
con
and San
el
Jose
equipo
Maipo
de JICA diseñaron una carta de
with the JICA
intenciones
team,
y
they
una
designed a chart
estrategia
of
para poder
intentions and
ir
strategy
incorporando las acciones
to
del plan
include
comunal,
the
por
actions of the
ejemplo,
communal
al
plan
PLADECO, de manera de
to
que
PLADECO,
pudieran conversar
so they
ambas
could
herramientas para la
connect both
planificación
tools
y
for
poder
planning
definir
and
priorizaciones
being
y
able
líneas
to
presupuestarias
define
dentro del plan de inversión comunal
priorities
que
and budget
pudieran
for
financiar las
the
acciones
commune to
estratégicas
fund the
definidas en el plan
strategic
comunal
actions that were
para la
defined in the
RRD
communal plan
de cada una de las comunas.
for the disaster reduction of
Y
each of the
finalmente,
communes.
en colaboración con el Pilar 3, que
Finally,
más
in
adelante se les
cooperation
va a
with
presentar cada
Output
uno de sus,
3, which will be introduced later with
se
the
apoyó
results
la
of products,
generación de material de
they
capacitación
supported
en
the
cursos de
generation
formación
of
para
training
la Academia de
material in
Protección
training
Civil
courses
y
for
se
the
brindó
Academy of
apoyo
Civil
para la
Protection and
implementación
the
de esos
support
cursos que va a
for
permitir
implementing the
que
courses
en
to
el
allow
mediano plazo, cuando
for
los municipios y
in
los
the
equipos
midterm when the
municipales de
municipalities and their
RRD
teams for
comienzan a
disaster
diseñar sus
reduction
planes,
start
cuenten
designing
con un
plans,
apoyo
they
a través de un
could
curso de
have the
formación
support through
para
a
poder
training
elaborar
course
estos planes y luego poder
to be able to
implementarlos y
prepare the
hacerlos
plans, then
conversar
implement
de
them
manera
and make them
armónica y coordinada con los otros instrumentos de
communicate
planificación.
in harmony with the other
Muchas gracias.
tools for planning. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos la presentación de
We
Alicia
thank
Cebrián,
the presentation
jefa de la
of Alicia
División de
Cebrián, head of
Protección
the Civil
Civil de
Protection
ONEMI,
Division of ONEMI.
para presentar los
Now, in
resultados
order
del
to
segundo pilar que
introduce
viene a
the
continuación,
the
relacionado
results of the
con la
second
gestión del
out-
conocimiento ante los desastres,
Now we have the knowledge
nos
vis-à-vis
acompaña
disaster. We
la
have
jefa de la Academia
head
de Protección
of Civil
Civil de
Protection
ONEMI,
Academy,
señora
ONEMI.
Consuelo Cornejo.
Consuelo Cornejo.
Muy buenos días a todas
Good
y a
morning,
todos.
everyone.
Es un gusto poder estar
It is
acá
a
y
pleasure
contarles
to be
los
here
resultados
and
que
to tell you
obtuvimos con el
results
pilar
that
2 de
we have
este
with
proyecto de
Output
cooperación
2
entre
with this,
Chile y Japón.
cooperation project
Los
between Chile
objetivos
and
de
Japan.
este
The
pilar
goals of
2
this
tuvieron
Output
que
2
ver
had to
con
do
la establecer un diseño
establishing a
conceptual y
conceptual
también una
concept design
estrategia de implementación del sistema de gestión del
strategy of
conocimiento.
the knowledge
Lo que nosotros
management
de alguna
system.
manera logramos con este proyecto fue generar un prototipo que en términos de estructura y de funcionamiento pudiera, ¿no es cierto?, gestionar este conocimiento y a la vez establecer una hoja de ruta, una estrategia de implementación y un plan de acción para poder llevarlo a cabo. Para poder entender el sentido de este proyecto y en particular de este pilar, nosotros establecimos la pregunta ¿cómo aprendemos de los desastres? Y esa es finalmente la pregunta que inspira la generación o el establecimiento de este sistema de gestión del conocimiento. Entonces, lo que yo quiero contarles acá un poco tiene que ver con el cómo obtenemos información, cómo esa información se transforma en conocimiento y pasa por funciones esenciales como memoria histórica, investigación y desarrollo, capacitación y lecciones aprendidas, de manera de que todo este conocimiento se disponga en el repositorio para transferirlo al sistema y se pueda usar tanto para acciones estructurales como no estructurales que tiendan a reducir el riesgo de desastre. Como acciones estructurales y no estructurales tenemos, por ejemplo, los sistemas de alerta temprana o la educación, el entrenamiento, la simulación. De alguna manera lo que buscamos es cómo obtenemos esa información y finalmente la transformamos en un conocimiento disponible y útil para el Sistema Nacional de Prevención y Respuesta ante Desastres. Entonces, este sistema de gestión del conocimiento es un sistema organizacional diseñado para gestionar el conocimiento útil en términos de reducción de riesgo de desastre, disponible para el sistema nacional o el SINAPRED. Lo que muestra esta figura es que entra información a ONEMI, ONEMI transforma esta información en conocimiento útil que entra al sistema de gestión del conocimiento y queda entonces un conocimiento disponible que a su vez retroalimenta este mismo proceso. En esta otra lámina podemos ver en un esquema mucho más ampliado cómo funciona este sistema de gestión del conocimiento, donde vemos por una parte cómo entra la información de proveedores externos como internos a ONEMI, se genera este conocimiento y este conocimiento ingresa al sistema de gestión del conocimiento que está hoy día, ¿no es cierto?, disponible. En esta
In
imagen
this
quiero
image,
mostrar
I want to
algunos
show
de los elementos
some of
esenciales
the
de este
key
sistema de
elements
gestión del
of this
conocimiento.
knowledge management
El sistema de
system.
administración,
The
el sistema de
management system, the
procesamiento,
processing
de
system,
almacenamiento y
storing
finalmente de
system,
transferencia de
and
este
transference
conocimiento.
of the knowledge
Este
system.
conocimiento
So this knowledge
no es, esto va a estar disponible
will be
como un conocimiento,
available
no como
as a
información
knowledge,
o como
not
datos,
as an
sino
information
como
or
un
data,
conjunto de
but as a set
experiencias
of
que tienen
experiences
un marco
that
de
have
valores, de
a framework of
sensaciones,
values,
de
feelings,
conocimiento, ¿no es cierto?, que
knowledge
permite
that
que esta
allows that
práctica
this
de alguna
practice
manera pueda ser
somehow
transferida y
can be
pueda ser
transferred
utilizada,
and used,
considerando que se pueden tomar
considering
acciones
that
estructurales o no
structural and
estructurales.
non-structural actions can be undertaken.
Este es
This
una de las
is
funciones
one of the
esenciales del
key
sistema de gestión del
functions of the knowledge
conocimiento
management
que
system
tiene que ver con el proceso
that
de
has to
memoria
do with
histórica.
the historical
No voy a entrar en
memory
detalle,
process.
pero hay
I'm not going to
variadas,
go
un
in
conjunto de
detail,
tareas
but we have a set of
sucesivas que generan
tasks that
finalmente
generate
un informe de
eventually
conocimiento de
a
memoria
knowledge
histórica,
report
que es
of
lo que va a
historical
estar
memory
disponible
that will
en
be
nuestro
available
repositorio
in our
de gestión
repository of
de
knowledge management
conocimiento para la
system
GRD.
for disaster risk
Esto que parece tan
management.
abstracto,
This that seems
lo
to be so
queremos de alguna manera
abstract. We
ejemplificar
somehow
con
want to
algo
example
como
with
las
something
mitologías
such as
Taikan
the
y Tren
Kan and Tren Bilu mythology, Namasue
Y si nosotros
mythology from
tomamos estas
Japan. If we take this
mitologías,
mythology,
podemos
we
gestionarlas
can
y
manage
podemos
them and we
disponerlas
can make them
como un
available
conocimiento útil,
as a
ya sea
useful
en el
knowledge,
proceso de memoria
both in the
histórica,
historical
en
memory process, in
capacitación, en
training,
lecciones aprendidas,
lessons
etc.
learned, etc.
Acá
Here,
vamos a mirar
we
cómo
will see
está
how
esta gestión del
this knowledge
conocimiento
management
está
system
disponible
is
ya en
available
esta maqueta,
already
en
in
este
this
repositorio de
repository
conocimiento
of
para la
knowledge
reducción de
for
riesgo de
disaster
desastre.
risk
Ahí, por
reduction.
ejemplo, podemos buscar la
For
palabra
instance, we can find the
mitigación,
word
nos vamos a una
mitigation,
región
we go to
y
a region
encontramos,
and we find,
por ejemplo,
for
un
instance,
documento
a
que tiene que ver
document
con
that
el
has to
desarrollo de
do
un parque de
with the development of
mitigación
mitigation
y un lugar
park
conmemorativo.
and a
Luego,
memory
al
place.
clicar el
Then when we
documento,
click in
podemos
this
descargar
document, we can download, in
efectivamente
fact,
este informe de
this
conocimiento de
knowledge
memoria
report of
histórica
historical
que se pone a
memory
disposición,
that
¿no es
is
cierto?,
made
de todos los
available
actores
of
del
all the
SINAPRED para poder
stakeholders of
hacer
SINAPRED
uso tanto en
so
medidas
as to use it both
estructurales
in
como
structural
no
and
estructurales.
non-structural
Y
measures.
finalmente,
And finally,
los productos
the
de este
output
pilar
of this,
ha
the
logrado
product of
son
this output
este
are
diseño conceptual
this
del sistema de gestión del
concept design of knowledge
conocimiento,
management
la
system,
estrategia de
the
implementación,
implementation
la
strategy,
maqueta del sistema de gestión del
the
conocimiento y
mock-up
un video
of
que
the,
explica
knowledge
los
management
productos de
system
este
and the
pilar.
video that
Quiero
explains the
aprovechar la
product of
oportunidad
this
de
output.
agradecer
I would like to
al
thank
equipo japonés
the
que
Japanese
apoyó
expert team that
en la
supported
elaboración
us
de
in the
este proyecto y de
elaboration
este
of
pilar
this
en
project
particular,
and specifically
y
this
a los
output.
consultores chilenos
And the Chilean
Mauricio Beque,
consultants Mauricio
Pedro
Beque,
Fernández y
Pedro
Sergio
Fernández and
Fredes, que han
Sergio
logrado, ¿no
Fredes
es cierto?,
that were
que
able to
este
help us so that
prototipo del
this
sistema de gestión del
prototype
conocimiento
of
hoy
the
día
knowledge management
pueda
system today
ser conceptualizado
can be
y
conceptualized
prontamente
and
implementado.
soon
Muchas gracias.
implemented. Thank you.
Agradecemos a Consuelo Cornejo,
We thank
jefa de la
Consuelo
Academia de
Cornejo, the head
Protección
of the
Civil de
Civil
ONEMI,
Protection
por su
Academy
exposición.
from ONEMI
Continuando
for
con las
her presentation.
presentaciones,
To continue with the
a continuación
presentations,
dejamos con
we will
ustedes
now
a la
have
señora Elia Vargas,
Mrs.
jefa
Elia
del
Vargas,
Departamento de Prevención
head
Comunitaria
of the
de ONEMI,
Community Prevention
quien
Department
abordará los
at ONEMI,
resultados del tercer y
to
último pilar
tell us about the
relacionado
third
con los
and
mecanismos
final
de
output
formación
in
y
regards
capacitación
to
en gestión del
the
riesgo de
mechanisms
desastres.
of training in the skills for disaster
Buenos
risk
días.
reduction.
Dentro del pilar
Good morning.
3,
In
y
output
dentro de la
3
gestión de ONEMI, la
and
capacitación
ONEMI
es
management,
fundamental.
training
Por lo
is
tanto,
of
este proyecto
utmost
planteaba dentro de los objetivos
So the
y de los
project included in the
resultados
objectives and the expected
esperados, establecer el
results
mecanismo
to establish a
para el desarrollo de
mechanism
recursos
to
humanos
develop human
y su
resources
capacitación sobre la
and the
reducción de
training
riesgo de
on
desastres,
disaster risk
tanto
reduction,
en la Academia de
being
Protección
it in
Civil
the Academy
como
of
en el
Civil
Departamento de
Protection
Prevención
or the
Comunitaria de
Department
ONEMI.
for Community Prevention at
Para
ONEMI.
el desarrollo de este pilar,
To develop this pillar
trabajando
and working
directamente
directly
en esta materia,
in
el
this
proyecto
subject matter,
tuvo las primeras
the project
actividades
had
destinadas
the first
fundamentalmente
activities
al diagnóstico.
that
Por
were
lo tanto,
mainly
la primera
for
actividad
diagnosis.
propuesta
So
era
first
revisar los
activity that was
programas de
proposed was to
capacitación que en
review the
general se
training
ofrecen
programs
desde
that
la
in general
Academia
are
de
offered
Protección Civil
from the
desde
Civil
el
Protection
Departamento de
Academy,
Prevención Comunitaria,
from the
desde
Department
ONEMI
of
en general,
Community
basado en distintas
Prevention,
metodologías que permitieran
based in different
poder
methodologies
establecer,
to
comparar
establish,
y analizar
compare,
los
and
distintos
analyze the
de
different
estas
courses.
primeras etapas diagnósticas.
From these first
Surgieron
stages of
diversos
diagnosis,
informes.
we
Acá, por
have
ejemplo,
different
mencionamos la
reports.
revisión de
We
los
mentioned
programas de
the
formación de
review of the
recursos humanos
training
de la
programs for
Academia
human
de
resources
Protección Civil y del
for the
Departamento
Academy
de
of Civil
Prevención
Protection and the
Comunitaria.
Department of Community Protection.
Siguiendo con la etapa diagnóstica,
To continue with the
se buscaba
diagnosis,
como una segunda
we were
actividad
aiming as a
identificar
second
la población
activity to
objetivo
identify
del
the
desarrollo de
target
capacidades,
population
sus
to develop
necesidades,
skills,
tareas alineadas con
their
las
needs,
regulaciones
the
de
tasks that
ONEMI.
were aligned with ONEMI
Esta etapa
regulations as well.
diagnóstica ya no solo
This diagnosis
profundizaba
stage is
en
not just getting
cursos de
deeper in
capacitación,
training
sino
courses,
también
but
en la
also
estructura
in the
organizacional que
organizational
permite
structure
llevar a cabo
to allow
estos cursos de
to
capacitación.
create and
En estas
perform
etapas,
these training
además de
courses
la
in these
revisión
stages.
documental, también hubo
Above the
entrevistas tanto a
document
quienes
revision, there were
participaron
interviews
como a
for
nuestros
people
públicos
delivering the
objetivos. Y
courses
a partir
and
de
our
ahí
objective
surgieron
public.
ya las primeras
Since then, we have the
a las
first
mallas
approaches to the
curriculares por tipo
curriculum
de público objetivo y una
per
serie de
type of target
recomendaciones también
audience
para
and a
continuar
series of
avanzando
recommendations to
en el
continue
trabajo
making
de este
progress
pilar.
in the work with this output.
Basado en este análisis, en estos
Based
diagnósticos
on the
previos,
analysis
y
and
también
previous
vinculado
diagnosis
a las acciones
that
que
was
se desarrollan
also
tanto en
linked
el
to the
pilar
actions
uno
that
como en
were
el pilar
developed in
2, pero
outputs
particularmente en
1
el pilar
and
1,
2, but particularly
surgieron
1,
recomendaciones que permitan
we
mejorar la visión, los
received
objetivos de
recommendations
los
to improve the
programas de
vision and
capacitación
objectives of the
y de los
training
futuros
programs
programas también,
and the future
mejorar los
programs
planes de estudio,
to
por
improve
supuesto,
the
y
study
adicionalmente
plans and
desarrollar un
additionally
módulo
to develop
que
a module
permita difundir
to
las
allow
herramientas
for the
generadas
promotion of
en
the
el pilar
tools that
1,
were generated
que
in
buscan
output 1,
fundamentalmente fortalecer el trabajo
looking
de los
for
niveles
strengthening the
comunales
work at a
en la
communal level
planificación en materia de
in
reducción
planning
del riesgo de
in
desastre.
matters of
A partir de
disaster risk
este-
reduction.
de este trabajo se
Since
construyeron
that
las mallas
work,
curriculares
the
con recursos
curriculum
públicos objetivos,
were
se actualizaron
prepared
los documentos,
per
los
target
documentos
audience.
base,
The
que son
base
las bases
document
generales
was
de
reviewed,
formación
which
para
is
la
the
gestión de riesgo de desastre.
general base
Y
for
por
training
supuesto,
for
todo esto
disaster risk
también
reduction and of
con
course
elaboración y pilotaje
with
de
the
este curso
cooperation
de
and
gestión de
piloting
planes
of
que
these
incorpora ya el
management
módulo a partir del trabajo del
of
pilar
plans
1.
that is included since Pillar 1.
Uno de los ejes
One of the
fundamentales que nos
fundamental
propusimos para el trabajo de este
axis
pilar
that we
tiene que ver
propose
con
to
discutir
work
los
on
métodos
this
de
pillar
monitoreo
is the
y
discussion of the
evaluación de los
monitoring
cursos
methods
para el desarrollo de
and
capacidades,
evaluation of
y a
courses
partir de
for
esto, compilarlos o
capacity
generar un
development
manual
and
que nos permita
compiling or
orientar esta
generating
labor.
a manual
Los
to
cursos,
give
las
orientation to
capacitaciones
this
son fundamentales,
work.
pero ¿cómo sabemos
Training
cuál es el
courses
impacto
are
que están
fundamental, but
generando
how
los
can we know the
distintos
impact
objetivos?
of different
¿Cuánto de esto que
objective
nosotros
publics? How much of
transmitimos a través
that
de los
that
cursos
we
se aplica
transmit through these
realmente en
courses
otros
and
espacios
classes,
laborales,
it is really
en las otras
applicable to other
instituciones,
working
en la misma
spaces,
comunidad?
institutions, and the community.
Entonces, el trabajo que se propuso
So the
para
work
avanzar en
proposed
esta
to
materia
make progress in
tuvo que
this
ver, por una
subject
parte,
matter
por supuesto, con la
was
revisión
related,
de la
of course,
bibliografía
with
asociada,
reviewing the
con
bibliography that was
entrevistar
associated
también, identificar
to
quiénes son quienes
interview
evalúan,
and
quiénes
identify
son las
who
personas que
are the
reciben y
people
que debieran aplicar
making the
estos
assessments,
contenidos en sus
or
puestos de
they
trabajo
should
o en sus
apply the
comunidades,
content in
y a
their
partir
job
de esto,
positions or
generar
communities,
este
and since
manual
then,
que ya
to generate the
identifique los
manual
métodos de
to
monitoreo
identify the
y la
monitoring
evaluación, en el
methods
fondo, que podamos
and the
llevar a cabo
evaluation
en,
that we
en
could
el trabajo
perform
de ONEMI, en el trabajo de la
in
institución.
ONEMI's work and the
A
work of the
partir de esto,
institution.
se
Since
trabajó para
then,
llegar a estos productos
we were
finales
working to arrive to
en
this final
pilotos con distintos
product
cursos,
with
particularmente
pilots with
con el
different
programa de
classes,
cursos comunitarios de
particularly
respuesta a emergencia,
with
que tiene
community
dentro de sus pilares el curso
teams
básico
for
CERT,
emergency
y también con el
response,
curso de operaciones
with the
de
basic
emergencia.
class CERT and
Esta
the
metodología
class
se
for
propuso,
emergency
se
operations.
piloteó y
This was a
finalmente
methodology that
se
was
llegó a una
proposed,
guía
then
de evaluación
went through a
de los
pilot,
cursos
and
del
eventually it
programa
became a
ONEMI
guideline
para
for
el Sistema
assessment
Nacional de
the
Prevención y Respuesta ante
the
Desastres.
courses of ONEMI
Esta
to
guía
give a
estuvo
response
basada en un
to
trabajo que ya
disaster
estaba
risk reduction.
desarrollado y diseñado desde el
A
servicio
work that
civil,
was
que es
already
la guía
designed
práctica para
and
gestionar
prepared
la
from the civil
capacitación
service,
en
that
los
is the
servicios
practical
públicos.
guideline to
Nosotros
manage
tomamos esta
training
guía que
in
ya
public
comparte
services. We
el
took the
modelo
guidelines
Kirkpatrick,
that
que
is
es uno de los
sharing
que nosotros
the Kirkpatrick
consideramos como
model
base.
that we consider
Tomamos
the
esta
base
guía Y
we took that guideline and we adapted that for the work that we do at these institutions.
Y ya de lleno en los productos finales,
Then going deeply into the final results or products, the guideline for assessment of courses and classes for SENAPRED, for the National System for Disaster Reduction, SENAPRED, which will be the guide for anyone to create training in this matter, the curriculum program that will include the brochure and a definition per profiles. We define 6 profiles: coordinators of the system, ONEMI officers, members of the commissions for disaster risk reduction committees, response organisms or organizations, the media, and of course the community. One of the other final results or products is the modules that were included in the class for plan and the management of, or disaster risk management, what we call mock-ups, right? Maquetas in Spanish. But this is our didactic material to create classes in person, to provide a practical view of the content that we develop. Finally, as one final product, a video that we call video number 3. But truly, it is a video that shows and aims to get sensitivity about how relevant training is and account for training being one of the most important axes when we talk about disaster risk reduction. That is the presentation so far of output number 3. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos a Elia Vargas, jefa del Departamento de Prevención Comunitaria de ONEMI. Agradecemos también a todas las expositoras que han participado en este bloque para presentar el Pilar 1 y el Pilar 2 de este proyecto. Para continuar con el programa, invitamos al señor Rodrigo Ortiz, subdirector de gestión del riesgo de ONEMI, quien se referirá a la contribución del proyecto a la nueva ley del Sistema Nacional de Prevención y Respuesta ante Desastres, SENAPRED. Adelante, Rodrigo.
SENAPRED in Spanish, in the acronym. Rodrigo, you're recognized.
Bueno, buenos días.
Good morning, everyone.
Voy a exponer cómo contribuye este proyecto a la nueva ley, tal como dijo Dafne. Se da una particularidad, que hay una completa coherencia entre lo que nosotros no estábamos preparados para que la ley saliera tan rápido, eso es la verdad, pero nos pilla justo en el momento en que estábamos desarrollando el proyecto, y está esta coincidencia que la voy a explicar de inmediato el por qué este proyecto es absolutamente coherente con lo que la ley exige. La ley que establece el Sistema Nacional de Prevención y Respuesta ante Desastres sustituye la Oficina Nacional de Emergencia por el Servicio Nacional de Prevención y Respuesta ante Desastres, en el nombre de la nueva política pública que nos rige a partir de agosto del presente del año pasado. Esta es una ley que no la voy a explicar completa, por cierto, sino que me voy a abocar a lo que importa, a lo que nos interesa en este momento. Tiene 52 artículos y tiene los títulos que están ahí. Tiene el título preliminar, el primero, disposiciones finales y, por supuesto, las modificaciones transitorias, como la mayoría de las leyes. Pero esta ley lo que hace es que habla sobre la institucionalidad, sobre los estructuras de coordinación, sobre los instrumentos de gestión, sobre otro tipo de responsabilidad, las funciones que cumple, etc. Bueno, nosotros nos vamos a abocar específicamente, primero que todo les voy a explicar que el SENAPRED, que es el Sistema Nacional de Prevención de Riesgo y Alerta ante Desastre, Respuesta ante Desastre, es muy similar en el concepto a lo que era el Sistema Nacional de Protección Civil, y es lo que está escrito en este momento. Está conformado por el conjunto de entidades públicas y privadas con competencias relacionadas a la fase del ciclo del riesgo de desastre. De ahí viene cómo se organizan, es decir, estas organizaciones son las que proveen capacidades para poder enfrentar lo que es la reducción del riesgo de desastre, desde lo que es la mitigación, preparación, alerta y respuesta. Y por otro lado está el Senapred. El Senapred hay que mirarlo como la organización, la estructura física que coordina todas estas capacidades que están distribuidas en las distintas organizaciones del Estado e incluso en las organizaciones privadas. Es el motorcito que es el que permite que esas capacidades se gestionen, se desarrollen, se utilicen, ya sea en un momento de un desastre o en todo lo que tenga que ver prevención, se vayan desarrollando a través de diferentes planificaciones. Nosotros nos vamos a abocar especialmente a los instrumentos de gestión porque este proyecto coincide directamente con el título 2, que son de los instrumentos de gestión del riesgo de desastre. Los instrumentos de gestión que están indicados en la ley son los que ustedes ven. Y ven ahí ustedes tres círculos, y me voy a partir por el del medio, el más grande, donde dice instrumentos de gestión, que está formado por el sistema de información, los planes para la gestión del riesgo de desastre, los planes sectoriales corresponden a todos estos planes que son dirigidos por los diferentes ministerios, otros instrumentos de gestión, hay que identificar algunos que no estén y que tengan que ser incorporados, mapas de amenaza, es importante porque son vinculantes junto con los instrumentos de ordenamiento territorial, o sea, son vinculantes a los instrumentos de ordenamiento territorial, mapas de riesgo, sistema de alerta temprana, la política nacional. Este es el gran, lo grande, los instrumentos de gestión, y los otros 12 círculos indican que, por ejemplo, los sistemas de alerta temprana están compuestos por la unidad de alerta temprana, los organismos técnicos, Sistema Nacional de Comunicaciones, perímetros de seguridad y los planes para la GRD, que son el Plan Estratégico Nacional para la RRD, con sus planes regionales, comunales, y el Plan Nacional de Emergencia con sus planes nacionales, provinciales y comunales. ¿Dónde vamos a estar nosotros? ¿Dónde este proyecto apunta directamente a los planes para la gestión de riesgo de desastre y sistemas de información? Y dentro de los planes de la gestión de riesgo de desastre, los que son los planes para la reducción del riesgo de desastre. En el sistema de planificación que se está construyendo en este momento, derivado de lo que la ley nos mandata, es que nosotros tenemos que integrar todo esto que ustedes están viendo en pantalla en un gran sistema que sea coherente, que sea armónico, sistemático y tenga consonancia. Eso lo dice la ley tal cual. Es decir, debe haber una coherencia entre cada uno de estos planes y debe tener una comunicación de manera que se integren y se retroalimenten entre sí todos estos elementos que están ahí puestos como sistema de planificación, y que esperamos tener ese sistema desarrollado de aquí a mitad de año. Desde el punto de vista del proyecto, lo que nosotros lo que hemos desarrollado es que el plan comunal para la RRD, para la reducción de riesgo de desastre, que ya lo explicaron anteriormente las personas, tiene que ver con la metodología donde nosotros vamos a identificar aquellos elementos que nos van a permitir disminuir la vulnerabilidad territorial, pero lo más importante tiene que ver con el financiamiento. Y el financiamiento, cuando hacemos una integración a través de lo que es el tema de los diferentes objetivos de reducción de riesgo de desastre, el financiamiento puede producirse a nivel comunal, debe producirse a nivel regional, o debe producirse a nivel nacional,
a specific sectorial level. We lost the sound.
Should I go?
Unfortunately, we have no sound.
Les pedimos un momento de paciencia, ya que estamos teniendo unos problemas técnicos que vamos a resolver inmediatamente. Los invitamos a mantenerse conectados en esta transmisión, en tanto resolvemos los problemas técnicos. Muchas gracias. Con Rodrigo Ortiz para que continúe con su presentación.
Bueno, aquí estoy. Cosas que pasan cuando se está transmitiendo en vivo, pero seguiremos. Voy a seguir explicando cómo contribuye este proyecto a la nueva ley que regula al futuro Senapred. Voy a partir de esta parte, de aquí, de lo que son los instrumentos de gestión. Dije que nos vamos a abocar a conversar sobre los planes para la gestión de riesgo de desastre, específicamente lo que es los planes de reducción de riesgo de desastre, que de eso se trata el proyecto, y de los sistemas de información, porque ahí es donde está la contribución de este proyecto que estamos hoy día finalizando. Lo que nosotros estamos desarrollando hoy día como parte del ONEMI es que estamos obligados a construir un sistema de planificación con todos los instrumentos de gestión relacionados con los planes y que la ley nos obliga a desarrollar. Pero como no puede ser algo totalmente independiente cada uno de ellos, lo que hacemos es que vamos a construir, lo que estamos haciendo es un sistema con todo eso que ustedes están viendo en este momento. ¿Por qué un sistema? Porque cuando estamos hablando del plan de reducción de riesgo de desastre, no suponemos, sino que está obligado, de que está incorporado también los mapas de amenaza, los mapas de riesgo, sigue las políticas nacionales, está integrado con los planes sectoriales, está integrado con los planes regionales y en definitiva todo tiene que estar alineado para poder disminuir las vulnerabilidades territoriales y además cumplir también los objetivos que pueden estar desarrollados o indicados en el plan estratégico nacional. ¿Dónde apunta o dónde este proyecto contribuye demasiado o contribuye mucho? es en el Plan Comunal para la Reducción del Riesgo de Desastre. Lo más importante que los planes de desarrollo de capacidad en los niveles que sea, o sea, los planes de reducción de riesgo de desastre, apunten a la disminución de las vulnerabilidades territoriales. Pero más importante, no más importante que ese objetivo, que es el objetivo que nosotros queremos relevar, sino que es cómo lo financiamos. Y el punto es que la metodología que se ha hecho en este proyecto es que, levantado el Plan Comunal para la Reducción de Riesgo de Desastre, especialmente en Licantén, en San José de Maipo, es cómo financiamos estos objetivos que ya sean de acciones estructurales o no estructurales, de manera de poder disminuir esa vulnerabilidad territorial. Y lo que se ha hecho es una integración entre el Plan Comunal para la Reducción de Riesgo de Desastre, hoy obligatorio para las municipalidades, con el Plan de Desarrollo Comunal también obligatorio para las municipalidades. Por lo tanto, el Plan Comunal para la Reducción de Riesgo de Desastre alimentará con acciones estructurales o no estructurales al Plan de Desarrollo Comunal. Todas aquellas acciones que no puedan ser resueltas en el nivel comunal, dado el sistema que se está construyendo, se irá a nivel regional y se integrará a las estrategias de desarrollo regional, se integrará a los planes sectoriales, pero es un tema que estamos en construcción. Pero lo importante es que todas las vulnerabilidades o la mayoría de las vulnerabilidades territoriales debieran estar levantadas en los 345 planes comunales, porque cada comuna deberá tener un plan dado que la ley lo obliga. Y este es la guía, el producto que ya mostraron, no quiero ahondar más allá, pero aquí está la manera en cómo se le hace el plan de reducción de riesgo de desastre y cómo se integra con el plan de desarrollo comunal. Pasemos entonces al segundo elemento de los instrumentos de gestión relacionados con este proyecto, Sistema de Información y el Sistema de Gestión del Conocimiento. El artículo 39 del Sistema de Información dice que el servicio, conforme a las políticas, estándares y tecnologías que están a disposición del Estado de Chile, deberá poner en marcha un sistema de información para la gestión del riesgo de desastre, a través del cual deberá procurar en todas las fases del ciclo del riesgo la integración de toda clase de contenidos referidos a esto, obtenidos de todas las entidades nacionales, regionales, provinciales y comunales. Lo que tenemos ahí, ese globo, es un sistema, o ese círculo es el sistema de información. Cuando hablamos de sistema de información, se supone que esto está compuesto por algunas cosas u otros elementos que tienen que integrarse para que cumpla la labor del sistema de información, que es una labor integradora. Entonces, podemos entender de que, por ejemplo, en el ONEMI tenemos algunas cosas como el sistema de alerta temprana existe, el sistema de capacitación existe, el sistema de información geográfica, el sistema de planificación, el sistema estadístico. Bueno, en fin, hay una serie de otros sistemas que deben levantarse, identificarse, ver cuáles contribuyen, cuáles son parte del sistema, cuáles son qué elementos que tienen que relacionar, cómo se relacionan, y en definitiva todo eso tiene que identificarse, porque ya que vamos a crear uno solo que integre, vamos a tener que identificar estos sistemas, que algunos de los que están ahí, digamos, de todas maneras van a estar porque existen hoy día. El sistema de supervisión. El sistema de supervisión es algo que hoy día nos obliga a la ley. Va a tener que mirarse y va a tener que ver cuáles son las demandas de ese sistema que van a alimentar ese sistema de información. El sistema de modelación de escenario que estamos trabajando con Sigiden y con una consultora alemana, que estamos haciendo un prototipo en relación a un tema de multiamenaza y modelación de escenario de tsunami en la provincia, en la región de Valparaíso, y otros que habrán. Y también existe esto, que es el sistema de gestión del conocimiento. Y este sistema de gestión del conocimiento, que corresponde al pilar 2, es un sistema que está totalmente desarrollado en estructuras organizacionales, en funciones, en personas, en misiones y en tareas. Es decir, lo que se ha construido es cómo yo debiera hacerlo en el día de mañana, cuando exista la posibilidad, cuando se vaya integrando más presupuesto, cómo se va a ir aumentando la dotación, se van a crear funciones, tareas para hacer. ¿Para qué? Para procesar el conocimiento, para almacenarlo, para transferirlo, ya sea para que se use en acciones estructurales y no estructurales, tal como dijo la Consuelo anteriormente, en ámbitos de la capacitación, en ámbitos de las lecciones aprendidas, en ámbitos de la investigación y desarrollo. Bueno, en fin, Toda esa información que se transforma en conocimiento, todo eso va a alimentar al sistema de información, y esas flechas que se acaban de incorporar ahí tienen que ver con que lo que hace el sistema de información es que integra toda esa información que van a entregarse en diferentes sistemas de manera de poder realizar la reducción de riesgo de desastre en cada uno de los ciclos donde corresponde. Por eso que la contribución de este tema es tremendamente importante. Solamente quiero dar un dato, un estudio, según un estudio que es bastante antiguo, ya tiene 7 años el estudio. Decía que el año 1900 la duplicación de conocimiento en el mundo se demoraba 100 años. Al año 1945 se demoraba 25 años en duplicarse la cantidad de conocimiento. El año 75, 12 años, hace un par de años era 2 años, y se espera que con el Internet de las cosas la cantidad o la duplicación del conocimiento sea en días y tal vez en horas. ¿Esto qué implica? Que el conocimiento se transforma en tecnología, se transforma en manera de hacer las cosas, y en definitiva creemos nosotros que lo que es
that what is working on the knowledge management system or in the knowledge itself is the future, because things that we won't know, we won't be able, we would need imagination to understand with that amount of the speed of the duplication of knowledge in the world or what might happen. So we in DRR, that should be a very important input for what is coming in the coming 30 to 40 years of the SENAPRED. So this is in a document of more than 500 pages where we have functions, tasks, missions, people, processes, everything is developed so as to develop a knowledge management system at ONEMI, and this is a model that is useful for any other organization. Within the actions of ONEMI at this time, given the fact that we are in a moment of change, we have to submit a new structure from today to August at an organization level so as to comply what is mandated by the law. In the Deputy Direction of Risk Management, one of the departments, the structure is under discussion. The proposal is to create under the Department of Analysis and Risk Understanding the knowledge management system, and we think that that should be so, because we have talked with the director and with the working group. We will have soon at least the first part of what this system is, so that we can implement it as time goes by, because this will take a little time. Finally, output 3, that has to do with training. Searching in the law, Article 24 of the national policies for DRR states that we have to strengthen governance, to foster prevention culture, emergency preparedness, to understand the risk of disaster. To understand the disaster, the risk of disaster is what we can say that is aimed, but is cross-cutting across the board. Everything that has to do with training is across the board, because when the law states that we have to create coordination structure, it means that we have to train people of the system for those coordination structure so that they can understand what is disaster risk management. Also, we have to train communities so that they can understand where they live, which are their threats, and the action of the academy, the action of their duties, that is, and that we work in output 3, improving the curriculum, building specific courses for DRR of output 1, reviewing general basis, etc. Everything that was done, especially to build a guideline that allows to measure the effectiveness of training. That is a major work that directly contributes not only to Article 24, but we have 26 other articles that can address that relevance. in terms of output 3, especially what the Academy does today. So as a product, it was shown, it is there. We have the evaluation guidelines to measure the effectiveness. It means that when we have people and that they're trained in the system coming from different organizations, which is the effect afterwards of that training that took place on that organization where people came. So we have to measure that, and now we have a guideline that is elaborated, general basis, curriculum, etc. I don't want to go in depth on the rest because it was already explained. And I just would like to say that there is a very relevant consistency between the three outputs of this video, of this work, and with the law that we are implementing at this time. I hope that the explanation was clear, and thank you for your attention. We thank the Deputy Director of Risk Management, Mr. Rodrigo Ortiz, for his words. And those that are following through the live stream of YouTube Chile, we'd like to tell you that we'll have a brief break, and we will start again within 20 minutes to continue with the second part of this seminar. During this time, we will show 3 videos elaborated within the framework of the project that are related with each of the 3 pillars. Additionally, in the coming days, in the YouTube channel, you will be able to access a 4th video that will tell us about ONEMI's progress, especially within the framework of this project. When we come back in the second part of the seminar, we'd like to invite you to participate in a conversation that is titled How to Promote DRR Activities in Chile, that will be moderated by Ms. Alicia Severian, Head of the Civil Protection Division of ONEMI. A moment in which you can ask your questions through the chat of our YouTube channel. Thank you, and see you in 20 minutes' time.
No podemos impedir que la activación de una amenaza produzca daño, pero sí podemos minimizar la gravedad de estos trabajando en la reducción de riesgo de desastre. Y para ello juega un rol fundamental los alcaldes como líderes locales en la elaboración de los planes de reducción de riesgo de desastre, clave para el desarrollo sostenible.
Nosotros estamos en una posición geográfica y geológica que implica que estamos sujetos en el mismo lugar a distintos tipos de amenazas.
No soy miedosa. Yo tampoco no le tengo miedo a los temblores, pero uno fuerte sí. Sí, pues corremos riesgo viviendo aquí cerca al mar.
El énfasis de la reducción del riesgo de desastre de los territorios debe estar focalizado en la etapa preventiva. Para lo anterior, es importante que las comunas desarrollen su plan de reducción de riesgo de desastre, donde se identifican las amenazas, las vulnerabilidades y todos aquellos objetivos que permiten aumentar la resiliencia de las comunidades. Es importante que ese plan de reducción de riesgo de desastre comunal sirve como guía para poder incorporar en los planes de desarrollo comunal, los PLADECO, los objetivos de reducción de riesgo de desastre, como también incorporar esos objetivos en los niveles provinciales, regionales, nacionales y también sectoriales.
Japan and Chile are both prone to natural disaster, and in Japan we had, of course, a lot of experience of disasters, tsunami, earthquakes, and similar in Chile. So there are many good practices, knowledge, experiences in Japan that we can help Chile for improving the disaster risk management, disaster risk reduction, utilizing our experience.
Tenemos buena llegada con los alcaldes de la región del Maule y ellos también han encabezado y liderado dentro de sus comunidades para presentar proyectos al nivel regional para la reducción del riesgo de desastre y efectuar medidas de mitigación.
Lo que estamos trabajando es el plan global, ya está identificada toda la matriz de las amenazas, definía las acciones de mitigación. Las limitantes son los recursos económicos, llegar a ellos a través de los proyectos, pero tiene que ir a más arriba a buscar el apoyo tanto de la gobernación, de la intendencia, para llegar a los recursos de diferentes entidades que te permitan que esto no sea solo un papel donde escribiste planes que quedó ahí.
Siempre el río llegaba hasta la calle, pero el año 86 ahí salió, ahí subió y llegó, fue como igual que ahora, que el 2008. Ahí perdimos todo de nuevo.
Aquí hay mucho bosque nativo, entonces nunca se sabe qué puede pasar con eso.
Más de 80 botes, no quedó ninguno. Solamente uno.
Creo en el rol fundamental que la municipalidad tiene de un territorio y no reaccionar ante una catástrofe, sino que estar antes frente a esa catástrofe, prevenirla, anticiparnos.
Dentro de nuestros planes de desarrollo comunal y nuestros planos reguladores comunales incorporemos los objetivos de la reducción de riesgo de desastre. Eso es tremendamente importante porque a partir de ese hecho nos permitiría postular a diversos fondos que nos permitan financiar iniciativas que vayan desde ese punto de vista a la reducción de riesgo de desastre.
Que no se sabe con la naturaleza, entonces hay que estar siempre preparados para lo que sea.
Salí al día siguiente y esto estaba cubierto de barro, o sea, de partida el puente estaba en el medio del río, no había puente acá donde tenía que estar.
Los municipios, particularmente los alcaldes, son los encargados de liderar el proceso de elaboración del plan de reducción de riesgo de desastres comunal. Un plan de desarrollo que indique actividades de mitigación frente a desastres, acciones de tipo estructural, tales como obras de infraestructura, o acciones de tipo no estructural, como capacitación, como simulacros y ese tipo de actividades.
Frente a los riesgos identificados por los municipios, a partir del análisis de amenazas y vulnerabilidades, se pueden considerar soluciones estructurales de mitigación, como por ejemplo las piscinas de decantación, el reforzamiento de laderas y la canalización de cauces. Los financiamientos para este tipo de obras provienen del sector público y de alianzas público-privadas.
La relevancia de la planificación de reducción de riesgo de desastre requieren del compromiso de las municipalidades y para ello queremos pedirles que hagan suya la necesidad de elaborar todos los planes en cada una de las comunas del país. Única forma de coordinar y desarrollar las capacidades para una mayor y efectiva prevención. ONEMI, como coordinador del Sistema Nacional de Protección Civil, tiene y cuenta con especialistas y la voluntad para apoyar esta actividad.
Los bomberos, el supermercado, la posta. ¿Y qué pasó? No están aquí. ¿Sabes dónde están? Allá están.
En forma innata todos sabíamos ya que había que arrancar al cerro porque después de algo tan grande como que no nos podíamos sostener, venía un maremoto.
Es una experiencia que uno lo vivió y mis hijos lo vivieron, que mis hijos después a sus hijos, a sus nietos les van a contar la experiencia que ellos tuvieron.
El camión da vuelta.
Hay que ir contándole a las otras generaciones para que ellos vean, se aseguren más, pues.
Es sumamente importante estar consciente de que esto ocurre y recordar los hechos del pasado.
La memoria existe, pero está muy capturada individualmente. Y lo importante de esa memoria histórica es que se pueda compartir.
Desde el colegio, era el colegio. Desde el colegio.
La escuela recibió el golpe fuerte de la ola, quedó totalmente destruida. Cuando yo llegué, incluso encontré un pez dentro del colegio. Y no había nada, no encontré nada, bancos, sillas, muebles. El hecho de que se haya construido en esta altura, por la experiencia que tenemos la gente de acá, vemos que es un lugar muy seguro para los niños y para todos los que laboramos acá.
Es parte también de la enseñanza de nosotros de ir manteniendo la memoria, y así como mantener la memoria también y ir reconociendo la importancia de generar cambios.
Y lo que se ha intentado hacer es rescatar la memoria local bajo el punto de vista de que esta memoria, en las personas existe conocimiento respecto al pasado y ese conocimiento puede ser transmitido.
La verdad de las cosas es que la gente le ha perdido el miedo al tsunami. Porque si tú te das cuenta, donde está el puente de Iloca, eso arrasó con todo. Y ahora hay casas más al lado de la playa. Entonces hay que tomar conciencia, pero la gente no, se le olvidó.
Nosotros tomamos lo que ha ocurrido en las comunidades, le preguntamos a las comunidades qué fue lo que pasó ante un desastre específico y esa información va, y dado que es importante para nosotros, la almacenamos tipo conocimiento para que sea usada ya sea en investigación, sea usada para lecciones aprendidas, sea usada para memoria histórica. Pero esas cosas son importantes que una vez que ya las tengamos definido en dónde lo vamos a, qué es lo que vamos a hacer con ellos, se transforme en acciones estructurales y no estructurales.
Siempre el río llegaba hasta la calle, pero el año 86 ahí salió, ahí subió y llegó, fue como igual que ahora, que el 2008. Ahí subió como 1,70 m también y ahí perdimos todo de nuevo.
A ver, claro, esta muralla, mira este latón que está acá, el mismo este latón donde pegan cosas, ¿cachai?
Sí, sí.
Ahí está por ahí.
Llegó hasta las ventanas, pues,
sí,
llegó hasta las ventanas.
Hasta arriba, pues. Llegó hasta la zona de la plaza de armas, donde andaban en bote, donde había un hogar de ancianos y que provocó su evacuación.
Siempre en la historia del cajón han habido aluviones. Este es un claro efecto del cambio climático, entonces es sumamente importante estar consciente de que esto ocurre y recordar los hechos del pasado.
En Japón mismo, como allá la prevención es una política de Estado. Y ahí hay una gran diferencia con nuestro país. Para nosotros la prevención es una reacción de algunos que puedan visionariamente poder anticiparse o poder prevenir algo. Nosotros estamos, por lo tanto, aprendiendo de eso.
Y las memorias de las personas en general problematizan cómo se desencadenó un desastre y después eso, si nosotros solo lo consideramos para hacer políticas de resiliencia, pero no lo consideramos en la planificación territorial, no lo consideramos en la gobernanza del riesgo, en los planes de evacuación, etcétera, no estamos haciendo justicia como para lo que realmente, el aporte real que tiene la memoria.
Cuando logremos tomar desde la comunidad esa información y sistematizarla mediante un proceso permanente en las unidades o en las organizaciones correspondientes, nosotros vamos a captar entonces, vamos a lograr que eso que nos pasó en el pasado no nos vuelva se vuelva a repetir en el futuro.
La capacitación nos permite estar preparados ante cualquier tipo de circunstancia o emergencias que nos podemos presentar.
Por lo tanto, tenemos que estar capacitados y preparados a actuar.
Finalmente, las capacitaciones son una herramienta útil que te permite desarrollar localmente una capacidad de respuesta.
Es una semilla, de alguna manera, que nosotros queremos ir sembrando para que estas mismas personas que participan en las comunidades puedan ir diseminando este conocimiento, contribuyendo a generar esta conciencia, contribuyendo a identificar esas acciones que reducen el riesgo de desastre y por lo tanto instalarlas, desarrollarlas también en la misma comunidad.
日本ではONEMIに相当する内閣府防災が自治体の防災担当職員向けの研修コースを持っていて、数日間全国から来た仲間が一緒に学び合います。コミュニティについては各自治体が防災研修プログラムをそれぞれ持っています。日本では実際の災害が多いので、自治体間の連携支援により、災害の現場に派遣されて実践経験を積んでいるとも言えます。ONEMIと JICA のプロジェクトからのインプットとしては、研修教材の改善案を提案しました。理論だけではなく、災害の実例の映像を用いて、災害の状況をイメージし、災害を頭の中で疑似体験し、対応策を発想できるよう、より実践力を高められるような研修内容に改善しています。
Nosotros como academia hemos trabajado junto con el proyecto en la elaboración de mallas curriculares de acuerdo a perfiles que están orientadas en 4 áreas de general del conocimiento: formación general, análisis y reducción del riesgo de desastre, planificación para la gestión del riesgo de desastre y operaciones de emergencia.
Ha sido muy enriquecedor porque efectivamente nos sirvió para ser incluso el primer CERT de Chile legalmente organizado. La importancia de contar en cada localidad vecinos preparados, en cada sector vecinos preparados, tener en nuestras 4 compañías de bomberos gente capacitada, nos permite tener una atención mucho más expedita y más rápida, más eficiente y más eficaz en las materias de emergencia.
La capacitación, la información, la entrega de conocimiento es muy importante para que la gente pueda tener, construir mayor resiliencia tanto individual como comunitaria.
Hoy día las emergencias, los eventos críticos y adversos se sostienen primeramente desde las comunidades. ¿Y cómo podéis tener mejores respuestas ante eso? Capacitando a los vecinos, porque es el local el que primeramente responde. La capacitación sirve y la capacitación es útil para los vecinos.
プロジェクトでは防災関係機関に対して防災教育や研修を実施する市民保護アカデミーとコミュニティ予防部に対して参加者の継続的な学びを支援するためのカリキュラムの改定と研修の内容が組織の能力強化に貢献するかを検証するためのモニタリング評価システムの改定を行いました。またプロジェクトでは市の防災計画の策定と実施を支援するための実践的な講義プログラムの作成も行いました。
Tenemos que ver la efectividad de esa capacitación y eso se hace midiendo si efectivamente la persona cuando volvió a la municipalidad, cuando volvió al ministerio, logró que su jefe, logró que las personas que toman decisiones entendieran de que esa capacitación es importante y actuaran en consecuencia, elaborando el plan de emergencia, elaborando los planes de reducción de riesgo de desastre, generando estructuras para poder trabajar con la reducción del riesgo de desastre, y eso tiene que medir.
Para nosotros es fundamental el trabajo con los municipios. Nosotros creemos que los actores locales son los primeros que tienen que responder y por tanto la preparación de ellos es súper importante.
Y por eso digo que es tarea tal vez de la experiencia que a uno le tocó, la experiencia de la ONEMI, la experiencia de otro colega alcalde también, en cómo esto tiene que transformarse en una política pública.
Ojalá algún día como país lleguemos a hacer lo que es Japón en materia de gestión de reducción de riesgo de desastre. La importancia de lo que tiene la prevención, la mitigación y la preparación. Estar mucho más preparados, tener mucho más educados a nuestros niños desde la educación básica, lo que es la emergencia, lo que es el riesgo, lo que es la vulnerabilidad.
Hablamos de de incorporar en los niños habilidades para la vida frente a un medio cambiante, evidentemente esos niños cuando vayan al medio laboral o tomen algunos de ellos algún cargo de decisión en el país, van a enfrentar la vida de otra manera.
Z13, Z14, 15, 16, 17, 18, que son las últimas zonas de las salas que están más lejos.
La capacitación, ¿cierto?, que realiza Claudio, que es el encargado de convivencia para todos los cursos, nos permite hoy en día tener tranquilidad que en caso de alguna emergencia vamos a poder actuar de cómo corresponde según lo establecido en el plan de emergencia.
Crear una cultura preventiva del autocuidado es cambiar, ¿no es cierto?, la idiosincrasia de la gente. Por ende, tenemos que prepararnos para eso y preparar a las comunidades que están conviviendo con el riesgo para que enfrenten de mejor forma, ¿no es cierto?, estos eventos de naturaleza, otra de origen del hombre, provocados por el hombre.
Buscamos que tanto las experiencias como los conocimientos sobre gestión de riesgo de desastres sean oportunidades de aprendizaje.
Born and raised in San Jorge de Romeral, accountant from a background profession with more than 30 years in public administration. He used to be member of the Council of Molina Community since 2004 up to 2012. And in 2016, she was elected as the mayor a year today. She knows the commune, the needs, and the opportunities for development. Priscilla, welcome and thank you for being in this conversation with us. We have also Alicia Maldonado Miranda, who is in charge of the strategic development and sustainability from San Jose de Maipo municipality, Bachelor in Political Geography, Assessment of Social Projects from Universidad de Chile. She's now specializing in prevention and response to disasters in Universidad Mayor. She has a great work experience in health, education, health, sanitary systems, environmental studies, heritage, collective memory, and gender. Alicia, welcome. We have also two people who do not need much more of the introduction. They are part of the house, the director of the national director of Miguel Muñoz Barraza for the metropolitan region, physical education professor or teacher from Universidad Metropolitana de Ciencias de la Educación, with mental health and emergencies and catastrophes experience, planning and managing disasters. He is now undergoing a master's in Ducens, Mexico University for management of risk disaster, with a broad experience in managing risk and disaster and coordination activities. Director, thank you for being here. And we also have Carlos Bernales Espinosa, who is the regional director of ONEMI El Maule since 2011, engineer in risk prevention with a post title in disaster risk management, member of the academic council of ONEMI, senior instructor of the Civil Protection Academy, specialized in management of risk reduction in the Academy of Spain and Colombia, and internal audit of ISO 22320, with a broad experience in managing emergencies and disaster. Carlos, welcome. Thank you. To tell the people who is with us through YouTube channel, you can send your questions to the chat to any of the members and participants of this conversation. We will start talking. The first thing I'd like to ask to both regional directors, tell us please from your experience and the years here, managing situations to manage risk and planning for reducing risk. What is the importance that you assign to working in planning risk reduction at a communal level? Carlos, would you like to start? Sure, it's a pleasure. The importance for the communes where these emergencies and disasters happen is the ones that should be intervened with preparedness to manage better the emergencies. Not improvising, they work with the local idiosyncrasy, and that is also important. Identifying critical points, creating mitigation measures that could be cultural and non-cultural. They get trained as a community, and local authorities in the community. They prepare their emergency plans, risk guidelines, and of course to prepare for disaster risk reduction, and coordinatedly they work with all the actors of the communities that are involved in the emergencies and disaster. A community that is prepared, a community that works in disaster risk reduction faces better any situation of a disaster, creating a community that is prepared. Thank you, Carlos. Miguel, From your experience, why is it important to be planning and preparing in disaster risk reduction? We need to look hindsight, how important it is for the Chilean people. We could talk pre-2010 and post-2010, the learnings and how from then onwards the local authorities help with this learning, realizing how important it is to prepare and to know how to face an emergency situation, knowing the risk and the environment. And from then, making decisions. And fundamental thing is education. Maybe it's a professional idea, but formal and informal education is important to have more resilient of community through community working in the territories, but also throughout the formal education, how as infants we as a state, as a government, local government, are we able to scale the knowledge and capacities of the students so they could face better this nature that is so beautiful, but sometimes cause that it is poor. But through education, we could place the variables as important, aiming to the future communities and local communities. Perfect. Thank you very much, Miguel. We know that to reduce disaster risk in the territories, you don't need just to know them, but join the willingness and the willingness of the authorities, the mayors in these communes. It is relevant, I think, while wants to reduce the risk of disasters. And in that sense, Marcelo, Mayor of Licanten, I would like to ask you, from your experience working as a pilot commune in this project, what could you say are the challenges that you could highlight as good practices of this process, which might help other mayors who would like to start the same process to prepare their plans for disaster risk reduction? What do you think is the things to highlight that we could get from the process? I'd like to say hello, and it has been a wonderful experience for Licanten to be part of this. I think that the most important thing is to understand that preventing is a communal policy that we need to extrapolate. As Carlos said, orchestrating a community that knows and understands that prevention should be part, as it aims to reduce risks while we get together on the same objective. We participated in Japan as part of the experience. I've been for so many years in this, and we can get not just from the intention but the action with investment in prevention. Now Rodrigo spoke about a law. We need to cascade it down and communicate to other municipalities. It is important to convince many that these apparatus or functions in the government should be a state policy. Prevention should be included in each municipality. We have a fundamental role. All the political actors or leaders should follow that to achieve a line of work that I am sure has to do with education for our children, for the organizations, for the communities, preventing and anticipating some things that could be done. From that point of view, I could tell you about this project, which we deeply thank for participating.
Thank you, Marcelo. I would like to ask Alicia Maldonado from San José de Maipo, that was another pilot commune in this project. You were able to do this plan of DRR, and now you are adapting that. Which are the municipal standpoint that you are heading this work, that you can see in order to accomplish the implementation of this plan, and the strategic actions that you are defining, thinking in DRR of San José de Maipo Commune? First, good morning, everyone. Greetings from the mayor and all our organizations, and our appreciation to JICA and all the organizations that have worked with us. When the mayor undertakes his role in order to incorporate the DRR community plan in Plateco, we met where we have the community and other organizations, and we're able to do a very thorough analysis of the challenges that we have. And then we realized that it was necessary to do certain adaptations were within the strategic actions, and certain actions that were outside. And many of the problems of this commune, so as to connect all the population to the fresh water, that we have certain barriers that prevent that we have investment as are designed. Also, we have several problems that have to do that this commune represents with all the populations. See all the rivers flowing, and there are a lot of population that are living under risk areas. But the perception of the families and the people that live in the high mountain is very different from the ones that the people that live in the plain fields. And unfortunately, in our country, it's thought, for instance, the housing solutions or to connect to the services and utilities are thought and envisioned for the people that live in Santiago, in urban areas. So rural communes face many barriers so as to have connections of water or housing for that area, and they cannot find a solution within legislation. So it becomes quite complex to discover minimum standards in these issues. Also, our site is a tour hotspots, and other activities as well as mining. It is important to consider that the risk have a different scope that is very specific in each of these locations, and that's why assessing all these specificities of the commune with a cross-cutting team where we had many areas in the municipality, we were able to develop workshops together with technical capacities of the commune, to develop the adaptation of the plan that is ambitious on what we want to develop and that addresses the realities. In San Jose de Maipo, we have 25% of the population, but we have 65% of the population, as in the legislation, they don't have the possibility to have access to fresh water. So as to assess all the characteristics that makes complex for disaster risk reduction. So it has been quite an enriching process. And to put that in a common language with other sectors of civil society. Thank you, Alicia. I think it's very important to know the territories and risk planning. And in regards to that, with the experience, the territory, I wanted to ask the mayor of Molina, from your experience in the role of mayor, and considering the disasters that could have affected the commune, which is the relevance that to plan risk reduction? Greetings to all for the people that are participating in the seminar. For us, as a commune of Molina, we represent many communes of the country that didn't have the privilege that you had at the municipality of Licantén and San Jose de Maipo, of having this possibility.
Obviamente lo que tenemos que hacer todas las comunas a nivel nacional es
copiar este modelo,
copiar
to copy the good examples of
de San José de Maipo y poder implementarlo en cada una de nuestras comunas. Nosotros como comuna de Molina, y yo diría que como cultura de país, no estamos muy acostumbrados a planificar. Sin embargo, año a año, en base a lo que nos va pasando, vamos tomando más conciencia de que es necesario planificar, de que es necesario anticiparse para evitar futuros desastres y no correr esos tremendos riesgos que hemos tenido que correr. Nosotros tuvimos hace un par de años ya el incendio más grande de la historia en nuestra comuna, 15.000 hectáreas de bosque, mucho bosque nativo, y eso nos trajo consecuencias terribles para la comunidad y también obviamente para la naturaleza, para el medio ambiente.
For nature and the environment.
Desde esa experiencia, que lamentablemente los chilenos funcionamos de esa manera también en base a las experiencias que vamos teniendo, hemos hecho un trabajo muy mancomunado con ONEMI, y ahí agradecemos también al director, a Carlos Bernales, a todo su equipo.
The director, Carlos Bernales, and the team, because we have prepared much better and we need much to do in the future, but we are in that process.
Ya conformamos el Comité para la Gestión de Riesgo de Desastre Comunal. Agradecemos que el Estado, el gobierno,
that the state and the government had enacted this law. But we would like to do a constructive criticism that there are certain laws and then those laws are difficult to have the necessary funding. It happens to all the communities of the country that we have this law, that there is a regulation being done, and we have the attributions as the municipalities that we can create the law of emergency and disaster, but there is no funding available. So for us it is a problem. Having said that, we are willing to move forward with all the communes of the country, and I would like to give you information to the communes that has to do that we, through the management of the regional director Carlos Bernales and the Minister of Housing, they have a special decree, number 27, that allow us to apply to an emergency center we as Molina commune, we were awarded this project 240 million pesos, and we started the construction in March. And it will be an operation center that will allow us to generate training, to do all the work of prevention. So for us, it is very important, this window of funding that exists through the Ministry of Housing. So we'd like to invite all the municipalities of the country so that they can participate in these processes that are on a regular basis and that allow us to have this huge benefit to work in all the emergencies and disasters. Now we're working in the implementation phase, so I will tell the Japanese embassy so that if they can help us in the implementation of this center. But I deeply appreciate all your support, and there were projections and the support from Japan that has arrived to our country. Thank you. We really appreciate that international collaboration that Japan is doing with us. We deeply appreciate. Thank you, especially due to the willingness to do things in terms of disaster risk reduction in the territories. And those who are in the live streaming, you can ask your questions in the chat of the channel, and we will collect a few of them so as to ask those who are in the conversation. What Priscilla mentioned in Molina in the last intervention, she said in regards to how relevant is the work with communities in terms of DRR. So we have two mayors and a representative of San Jose de Maipo commune to ask them what is the relevance, how the communities are incorporated to DRR activities, which are the channels that you make visible, so that the communities can contribute from your experience, historical memory, etc.
Alcalde, empieza usted. Priscila no escucha bien.
Mayor, maybe Priscilla can't hear, but you can go first. Well, from that point of view, clearly the leaders... So it adds to what Priscilla says, to highlight the support and the contribution that we have had since we started. This has been strengthened with Juan Carlos Bernales, leaders of the organizations. With that, we were able to bring it to the commune. We have been doing this in the periodical meetings to be able to do it with our emergency officers. And with this presence we have had, we can be replicating. As Priscilla said, as a country we are used to it. This is a change that has been the result of what the nature has done. And as a country, we need to strongly work, including the communities, creating awareness. It is fundamental in the output number 2. We were not able, when we visit Japan, they have spaces to honor the memories of what happened in a disaster. That's what we want to do in our commune, to remember in our memories what a tsunami meant for our commune. And we feel convinced that we can avoid and help with people who knows better than ourselves. We can know the territory, but they know better. And they can help very much, and they do help very much, especially in the human thing that they manage so well. I think it is very important how, in practical terms, we arrive. We could cascade it in each of the sectors in this space when we do it unit by unit. Thank you, Marcelo. Priscila, can you hear us? What would you think is the way to include the communities? We have a system where we work with people of the municipalities that are always including territory. We cannot understand a plan without the territory. It is fundamental to create business meetings where you invite the communities, and all the solutions and all the risks that come out are coming out of that same community. The community is the one with the knowledge of the place, the risks. And what we do as municipality together with ONEMI is being a guide, a facilitator of this planning process that needs to be done in each of the territories. That's how it is important to work together with a community that has the knowledge, together with the expertise and the experience and the professionalism of people in the municipalities and professionals of ONEMI. So you do the work together. And that's our good way to create a plan from the territories to what we want to achieve as a commune and as a country in terms of risk and disaster. I'd like to say that Alicia in San Jose de Maipo is an expert in gender, so I would like to get deeper in how you include the communities, but from that also view of gender intersections, to include the needs of all the specific things and groups that pertain to a lion. I think that what you said is fundamental. The mayor of Molina and Nicanten, we cannot understand if this plan is putting the communities outside. The communities need tools to participate. When we adopted the communal plan, we decided to do it together with the community, as they also have their own organization, and many times with a great technical capacity that is installed, which has been really a strength and power to adapt the plan in our case. We think it's really of relevance, that information that the community has, the way to act when we have events like this. So we need to find it in a vocabulary that allows the communication with the institutionality, so as to give it value and the place of importance in how people will move to what event, particularly that they will take into consideration to go out of the house or not, to assign the category of importance to these situations that are in this community particularly very small, as they're among 26 locations that in the event of a situation like this, they are across the Geo25 route in the pattern of the border of the river. In that same logic, when we include the gender perspective, it has to do with public policy and the language, hegemonic language that we use is sustained in a universal subject who is a man, white and heterosexual. That is the universal subject of our era. If we think that this universal subject has not the same characteristics that half of the population really have, like LGBTIQ+, is not responding to these standards where the public policies are thought of. When we think about the development of the event of an emergency, who are the people who are concerned about taking out the sick people? People that day by day take care of the life in situations where you have disaster situations are the more affected. This is backed up at an international level. It is also mentioning the need of gender perspective. As long as we could make progress building new public policies and law, on top of that, it is required these practices, the language and the way in which we analyze the reality takes charge that among all the vulnerable population, there's one part that is still more vulnerable. We all know how the severity of sexual violence is increasing in cases of shelters and when they share one dorm room with people. The situation of vulnerability of girls, women, and generically by sex dissident people are necessarily variables that we need to add. When we were working in the adaptation of this communal plan, we were talking about the importance of not just comparing the gender perspective in order to have a fine-tuning of the analysis to face the different problems, but also the climate change variable, including climate change as it will stay. And in this community we have all the years severe situations, and we appear in the media. So we need to include the notion that after a disaster we are able to build or increase the skills of a community, and by no doubt there's no doubt that San Jose de Maipo as a community going through these type of events have more installed capacity now and they are more resilient, but it is required that this knowledge could go upstream and downstream, that we could establish a common vocabulary and we could understand. If you live in a location to the same alluvium situation they call rocks rolling, or the river or the water, whatever, this way of understanding needs to be supported by public policies, and we need to be able to deploy strategic actions that could give sight to the reality as we see it now, understanding that what is not mentioned or named, it is not existent. That's why it is so important to include the gender perspective in the way they stated to have a successful disaster risk reduction plan.
Thank you, Elisa. How relevant is what you mentioned when planning, and added to what the mayor have mentioned, they generate a relevant input so as to think on this planning in DRR, linked to the work with communities, to the specificity of those communes and communities, to highlight historical memory in each of those territories, so as to incorporate this experience in the work that is done in terms of DRR. We have been receiving a few questions through the chat of this broadcast. People congratulate the Mayor of Molina for sharing that information of the project, for the awarding of that project. And we have a question for the Regional Director of Metropolitan Direction, for Miguel. It says, from the academic area, as you say, and undertaking that as a country we are the best natural laboratory, how could we include a subject in the schools in DRR? You are muted, Miguel. Very good question. Something is key. Chile is pursuing cross-cutting goals so as to incorporate a DRR in the curriculum. That is one. So in each sector and subsector of learning, matters are incorporated, subjects that each professor or teacher from their skills should incorporate, so that the students can learn in a better way nature and understanding the changing environment. That is one area. But the reality tells us that that is not widely applied, although certain efforts have been made for the modification of the curriculum. Now, there is not a major development inside the educational unit. On the other side, we have a risk management tool, that is school comprehensive security plan, that allow us to develop all these areas. But where do we have the problem? Still, it is in the collective unconsciousness, this rationale of the so-called daisy evacuation drills. We were told how to evacuate a school, when most of the time the disaster, it should tell us we should confine the school, to give an example. So how we are able to incorporate in this program of the school, so that the main cross-cutting goals are incorporated also in a better fashion in disaster risk management, and they can permeate, as we are saying, that in the disaster risk reduction plan at a communal level, we should have incorporated the logic inside Pladeco, what we should do in how the school comprehensive security plan and the cross-cutting elements are incorporated to the institutional education project, and something that is quite relevant. Today we have a municipalization process where we have to do a program with the Ministry of Education, but since we have mayors here, there are certain municipalities that have an influence on education. So there we have an important responsibility so as to see how the school owners can incorporate these matters that are so relevant for the development of communities. And finally, there is another area that is quite relevant, and how, as a state of Chile, we're able to include in the curriculums of undergraduate of teachers disaster risk management. Because as we have teachers that do not have a specialization because they must do a graduate program, usually they're not prepared for that. But if they would have seen and studied at the university as they should, they would already have some knowledge, skills that will allow them to have a better task in their schools to convey those knowledge to the students. And also, we're not only teaching the children, but through education we are teaching the whole family. That is very important. So these three lines, strengthening cross-cutting goals, because that is already established. Second, how we can incorporate this in the institutional educational project, in all the learning spaces that we have in the school. And three, how we're able to include in the curriculum of the undergraduate of the teachers disaster risk management. Thank you, Miguel. Within the comments that we have received in the chat and live streaming, that we thank to all the people that are connected, that have been during this morning, there is one question stated by Priscila, the mayor of Molina, about the funding in order to apply what the law states, and one of them has to do with this formation of the offices or the risk management units in the communes. And now, addressing what is being asked in the chat, I would like to tell you that within the fundings considered by the law was the creation of the risk management program. That program is aimed at funding the institutionalization of these units in the municipalities of risk management and the management tools. understood for the law as the plans, emergency plans, risk management, the DRR plans, and the maps that are key tools for planning. So, in this manner, we answered the question from Corral municipality that asked about these funding tools so as to apply the law. We hope in the future that we will have availability of those resources in the same municipalities so that we can finance all the challenges imposed by the law in terms of DRR management. We have another question that I would like to ask the regional director of Maule. Based on your expertise as a CERT instructor and trade of trainers in these subjects, people ask how essential is, how relevant is that the people are trained as first response in their communities, how that changes the response and the disaster risk reduction between prepared communities and communities that are not prepared. Thank you, Alicia, for the question and for the person that asked. A community that is prepared faces better emergency and disasters. A prepared community does not improvise. A community that is prepared is more resilient. And this starts when we work with communities and we see the local realities. The great motivation they have is that they build and they prepare so as to face any disasters in the first 48 to 72 hours with their own resources, community resources. And what we do is to facilitate that they can be good observers of their own environment. They can do a survey of the resources that they have inside the community, and we provide tools so as to face the emergency and disaster within the first 48-72 hours with this course that is community response to emergency and disasters. We don't prepare firefighters or paramedics or psychologists. This is a course that is aimed and prepared for normal people like all of us, that has had very well received in the communities. The most isolated communities, the rural communities, is the one that receives in a better fashion and have very good result at a national level. And that community thanks the trainings that we install within that community so as to face disasters and emergencies that can be part of the local emergency committees where they do the local emergency plans that complement afterwards as an annex to the communal emergency plan, and then to the DRR communal plan. So the relevance is huge in regards to the community preparation in emergency and disaster that starts in the key core, that is the family. Prepared family plan, that is a tool that we have as ONEMI, that to each of those that participate in these trainings, we encourage them to have their own emergency plan so that then they can help the rest of the community. They have to be safe and aware that their family, their loved ones, are safeguarded. So, it has been very well received, very well assimilated, this ONEMI program. And they have realized that it is key that the communities, especially the most vulnerable and isolated, are prepared to face an emergency with their own resources until the professional teams arrive.
Thank you very much, Carlos. We are almost arriving to the end of this conversation session. We thank you for your willingness and the time to participate in this space to each of our guests. We hope that in the short term we can continue having this sort of spaces with more mayors participating who already have implemented the disaster risk reduction plan in their land, to share with the communities, to participate in the preparation of these instruments so as to generate territories that are more inclusive and sustainable along our country. And from the role that you representing the regional directions or regionals, I would like to highlight particularly the good willingness that you had in both municipalities, San Jose de Maipo and Licantén, in the work of these 3 years to be able to prepare the tools that are now open to and available to all the communities and municipalities with videos, the guidelines, the brochure, the format to prepare the disaster risk reduction plans at a communal level, which have been an input and an essential support to say with satisfaction that all the challenges of the project are 100% fulfilled. So we really thank you for your support and participation. And you are invited for new conversation spaces so you can help us to foster disaster risk reduction within the municipalities of your regions. Mayor, you want to say something? Very brief, I know that time is over, but I'd like to thank you. I was part of the project, participating, but in an incredible way. I would like to thank the professional work of all the officers of ONEMI at a national level, and in my case at a regional level. I also know Miguel's work in the metropolitan area, and I thank you the opportunity for knowing wonderful people in the JICA team that I met in Japan. I thank Japan for the hospitality, and as commune we are here and we will be committed to our communities. Deep in my heart, thank you very much to all of you, from the National Director of ONEMI to all the officers and to all the people of JICA and the government of Japan and the government of Chile officers who signed these agreements. Thank you for expanding all these to the communities of our country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, for your words. I'd like to give you 5 minutes if you'd like to give your final remarks, Mayor. Well, I have to say goodbye. Thank you very much for the support to the Japanese government for the work of ONEMI. We have been writing in the YouTube chat emails for all the municipalities about the Center of Emergency. No problem. You will save work and you can apply 3 times in the year. Consequently, you can just apply. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. Alicia, would you like to say your closing remarks? I'd like to thank the mayor. She was really cooperating with our housing office to build the Center of Emergency, and also to tell the mayor and many people that we're willing and available 100% to create meetings, building new experience in different communes and local realities, the capacity installed. In this commune, we had a meeting in the Civil Protection Committee to aim to disaster risk reduction or disaster risk management, and they're probably listening because the skills and the ability to organize with our neighbors, there's no doubt it's a great contribution. So in other locations and communes, we can generate better knowledge and we are better prepared. Thank you very much, JICA. Thank you very much, ONEMI. We'll keep in touch. Thank you very much. We want to thank you all for being with us. We invite you through our YouTube channel. Please stay connected. We will continue with the last part of this international seminar. Thank you very much. We thank you for all the participation in this conversation session, especially the authorities of the municipalities of Molina, Licantén, and the representation of San Jose de Maipo, our regional directors of El Maule and Metropolitan Region, and above all, the moderator, Alicia Cebrian, to give fluency to this event. With this is now the moment for final remarks in the seminar, in which we will show the final conclusions. We invite first the National Director of ONEMI, Mr. Ricardo Toro Tazara, to hear his conclusion remarks of all the activities that were presented during this day. Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank you for this great effort done by all of you participating from different areas in this project. A project that, as you see, it was explained in depth as part of the closure of the seminar, where we highlight how important it is what is given as an institution and to the system, with three outputs: giving orientation to communities, giving orientation to a system, and to the human resources, which are fundamental to be able to include in the continuous development that an institution as ONEMI requires, and of course the system to sustain it. It is important to also tell, as we said at the beginning, and it was explained at the beginning of the presentation, that the project is given to ONEMI with a great amount of product that we will input to the system together with the moment of approval of the law. In the implementation of the law, with many of the aspects to be considered throughout the implementation, will be important in the final decision to be made. As we have a tremendous initiative from Japan, JICA, and the ONEMI officers who participated also in, and the ones that participated in the project, to add the experience, adapting that to the Chilean reality, to add value, to support and lay out in the conditions that Chile requires. I'd like to highlight what was heard in this conversation with mayors, municipal officers, and regional directors who participated in these pilot activities, traveling to Japan, developing the project, to show that this job is aimed to the communities, where effectively we have the disasters. We need to be prepared to face them. It is one of our objectives that, together with the implementation of the law, we can see how it is reflected, the way in which we include the structure required by the municipalities to be aligned in planning the disaster risks reduction with Pladeco, requesting the higher levels to the ones that at that level cannot be sustained, as the project explained. Memory is part of it. We need to remember what happened in Chile, what we suffered, as it is important to learn from the lessons that we have learned to face the future, which is uncertain because of the climate change, as we are seeing now, and hard times will come, together with the geological threats that always have been impacting us. We can be prepared, knowing the risk better, having the best measures to have our population in alert, being prepared to face it in the best possible way. I think the closure has been very professional, providing all the details required to all the people participating in the system, and I invite and offer that all that we have as material that could have an influence in the different subjects and sectors of the country could be reported through the channels that will be given for this effect. I would like to highlight, especially to the full team that was centered in the Deputy Direction for Risk Management, the heads that were part of this and made this part of themselves, to develop the outputs in the way that we are interested, in order to adapt that to the Chilean reality. And effectively, they could be used and implemented in all that we want, together with the law. Thank you very much. Again, thank you for all the entities participating, the interest that has been generated in this matter, to understand that what we want is to simply be better to face the multiple emergencies that could be given us, that nature could be given us. Thank you.
So we thank the director Ricardo Toro Tasara for his closing remarks. And now we would like to offer the floor to Mr. Shoji Osawa, resident representative of JICA Chile, who will offer his final remarks. Thank you. Ambassador of Japan, Mr. Kazuhisa Shibuya, National Director of ONEMI, Mr. Ricardo Toro Tasara, Head of the Division of Cooperation of ACCID, Mr. Enrique Farria, Mayor of the Municipality of Licanten, Mr. Marcelo Fernandez, Mayor of the Municipality of Molina, Ms. Priscila Castillo, a representative of the Municipality of San Jose de Maipo, Ms. Alicia Maldonado, leader of the expert team, Mr. Ichiro Kobayashi, authorities, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As a resident representative of JICA Chile, I have the honor to give the final remarks on the closing of this seminar. I would like to thank your attendance in this event, where we have heard and shared with you the accomplishments within the framework of the project of the strengthening of ONEMI skills for the development of capabilities within the sphere of disaster risk reduction. On the last January 17th, 27 years since Kobe earthquake took place that had a magnitude of 7.3. This event had more than 6,000 people dying. And as a commemoration of this date, every year the families and the friends of the casualties and the victims gather so as to pray and remember for this day, for this tragic day, but also so as to highlight the relevance of being always prepared vis-a-vis a disaster. On March 11th of 2011, 1 year after the earthquake of Maule in Chile, a magnitude 9.0 earthquake triggered a huge tsunami that devastated a great part of the coastline in the east of Japan, leaving an unfortunate figure of more than 15,000 people dead and 17,500 people missing. A week ago in Chile and Japan, there were warnings in the coastlines of both countries that were affected by a tsunami generated by a volcanic eruption, underground volcano in Tonga. So a few days have gone by for this event, and we have just been able to see the level of disaster in the islands of Tonga and how vulnerable the communities can be to this type of circumstances. So under that situation of disaster, the help of the central level and local level do not always arrive in time. That's why the communities and the people must be prepared so that in an individual fashion or with the help of the neighbors, they can survive at least in the first 72 hours. in March 2015, the United Nations Assembly took place about disaster risk reduction in the city of Sendai, Japan, one of the most affected cities by the disaster of 2011. Within the Hyogo framework implemented between 2005 to 2015 in Japan, the capabilities of response in Japan were strengthening vis-à-vis disasters and improving the seismic codes of the countries. For the successor, the Sendai framework proposed for the years 2015 to 2030, consideration was made about the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and the relevance of reducing substantially the risk of disasters, both in terms of lives, livelihood, and health was considered, as well as economic means, physical and social, cultural assets, and environmental of the people, companies, communities, and countries. And both in the framework of Sendai as well as the SDGs, they aim at reducing substantially the global death rate due to disasters and the number of affected people due to disasters and the economic losses, as well as the damage to the infrastructure that is critical and the disruptions of utilities. The action priorities are to understand the risk and to strengthen governance and to invest on disaster risk reduction for resiliency and to rebuild better. In that sense, JICA has proposed the 8 steps for the development of the DRR plans at a local level. The first step is to know which are the possible threats, to know which would be the risk, to confirm the measures to be adopted at a central level, to identify the residual risk, to prioritize the DRR measures, to have necessary resources available, and to implement and review on a regular basis the adopted measures. In this project, there was a work with the communes of Licanten and San Jose de Maipo so as to develop in a pilot fashion an DRR plan. In the case of Licanten, the DRR plan was incorporated in the Pladecos. In this manner, the investments that are made in the communes will consider in the DRR plan and will be able to reduce the disaster risk in the future. Today we have been able to introduce the experiences generated by the project and the outcomes that have been accomplished, and we hope that they contribute in the strengthening, making possible to avoid human losses and economic losses in the coming disasters that will take place in the country. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Osawa, for your kind words. And with these final presentations, we finalize the seminar, Development Skills in the Area of Disaster Risk Reduction, that took place within the framework of the closure of the cooperation project between Chile and Japan. We thank especially the work and enthusiasm of those that made possible that this project is today a reality. Please have a happy afternoon and thank you for being with us in this broadcast.